Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, May the 10th, 2022. This is a regular scheduled board meeting of the Richland School District 1 Board of Commissioners. Do have a statement to read pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, which is FOIA. The public was notified and provided access to this live stream of the meeting via the district's website at www.richland1.org, as well as in person. It's available with limited seating. It is upon the hour of 4 p.m. We have one item that is on the agenda at the present time, which is our budget work session, with one item listed, which is 2.1, which is the fiscal year 2022-2023 general fund budget. We do need a motion to accept the agenda item and to go into the work session.
I make a motion to accept the agenda item to start the work section.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the agenda and to begin the work session. It's been seconded by Commissioner Clyburn. Point of question or discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose say nay. The ayes have it. Let the record reflect all board members are in attendance with the exception of Commissioner Bishop and Commissioner Devine at this time. Okay, at this time, we'll turn it over to Mr. Carlin, or should I say Dr. Witherspoon, to introduce Mr. Carlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appreciate your attendance in having this work session. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Mr. Ed Carlin.
Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Witherspoon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're going to go through the budget, and some of this you may have already heard, but we're going to just go through it, and then at the end we can see if we have any questions. We start with the priorities: expand the language immersion program, increase pre-K classes, increase teacher salaries. The state is going through and changing the funding formula for the school districts. So it's kind of making it a little more difficult than in the past years because there's changes and we're not sure what all those changes might be. But they're going to start calling it state aid to classrooms, and that's replacing the base student cost. So we're not going to see base student cost anymore. Teacher pay increase, and now we're talking about the House at this time, but the teacher pay increase, the House is recommending the $4,000 increase for teacher salary schedule. So every step on the teacher salary schedule will go up $4,000 based on the state salary schedule. Only receive funding for the steps that are less than the state salary schedule. And since the majority of ours are above that, we will not receive funding under the House. And then they're deleting the students at risk of school failure, a special revenue funding of $2.8 million. Now, under the House, we would have to pay a local share like we do for other things in a general fund. While it's a special revenue, we didn't have to do that. So we have FTEs in that fund, and if you reduce that fund by what we have to fund ourselves, that means we're losing 25% of that money. Also, with the slight increase in state funding, the STEP is not fully funded. And the STEP is in the House budget. Now, for the Senate side, the state aid to classrooms replacing the base student costs will receive the same as we did fiscal year 2022 without district portion of the EIA. So what that means is they're saying, okay, we're going to give you everything you got this year. We're not going to change and make the district pay the 25% on the EIA portion. That's going to come over to the general fund. Also, the Senate side has $2,000 increase for teacher salary schedule. And again, only receive it if you're below that schedule. We're above it, so we wouldn't receive any funding for that. And if I go back on the House side, they say in the proviso that we would have to continue our local supplement. And the local supplement is how much we pay above the state salary schedule. Well, if we're already paying $4,000 above the state salary schedule, we'd have to continue that on the state side, on the House side, which would, I'd have to calculate it, but it would be a large number because that's 4,000 times every teacher. But that's the House part. Now on the Senate side, we don't have to do that. They've taken that out, the local portion. So as long as we're above that salary schedule for the state on the Senate side, which would start at 38,000 rather than 40,000, we wouldn't have to pay. We wouldn't have to give a raise, and we also wouldn't get charged the $2,000. Also, the same with the deleting the students for risk of school failure is going to be moved over to the general fund. The good thing is that $2.8 million, we don't lose any local funding part. And then again, they have a step included in theirs, and the step is not funded fully. State funding issues for fiscal year 23. I mentioned this before. There's an increased 1% state retirement for the employer. The employee will remain the same. Increase for health insurance, 18%, which starts in January, so basically for this year it's 9%. Then the other 9% will kick in next year. So we should see the funding for that, probably a little less than 100%. And then on both House and Senate, there's included a 5% increase, but they're only funding it at 3%. We've seen this schedule for the millage for the districts in Lexington and Richland. Currently, and this is last year's millage, they don't have this current year's millage yet, we're third lowest out of all the districts. And up until about 2 years ago, we were the second lowest. But I will say that in Lexington, they do have a penny sales tax that helps towards the debt service. So the estimated state-based student costs is not part of the funding for the House or the Senate. The estimated state increase is approximately $3.5 million on the House side. And currently for this fiscal year, we're being funded at fiscal year 2008. If they were going to continue using the base student cost going forward. So we would no longer be able to compare year to year. So next 23 will be the first year under the new funding. We'll have to start looking at next year versus 24. The Senate version estimated state increase is approximately $6 million. And again, we will not be able to compare based on new formula. The value of the mill, and this again is this current year's value, is $905,000 with including the owner occupied, which we would use for debt service, and $660,000 without the owner occupied, which we use for operations. Estimated values for 23 still not available. Final values probably won't be available until September. The millage cap for 23 would be 279 mills based on the fiscal 22 information and will change when the final numbers are verified in September. The CPI is set at 4.7%. There is no growth information yet for fiscal year 22, so the total is still 4.7. Estimated cap, we would increase 8.2 $12.25 million in the county revenues, and it would be 12.5 mils if we did go to the cap. Total estimated revenues based on the House projections is $354,324,826, and basically what we have included in your package, total estimated expenditures $363,192,773, and that's before teacher raises. Now, it does include the step, but does not include teacher raises at this point. Some of those amount over that revenue would be moved to ESSER funding. Some of the possible changes in expenditure budget, the retirement and health, roughly $3.9 million. Increase for the step for teachers, $2.5 million. If we were to do a step for the non-teachers, $2.8 million. Language immersion, middle school, we talked about that, I think last meeting or the meeting before, $585,000. So just with those items there, we're looking at $9.8 million. Now, if we were looking at teacher increases, if we did 1,000 per teacher, it's about 2.5 million. 1,200 would be about 3 million, and 1,500 would be about 3.8 million. If we considered salary increases for the non-teachers, if we did 500 plus the step, it would be about 1.2 million. 750 would be about 1.8 million, and then 1,000 would be about 2.5 million. Some other considerations for this coming year. We know there's going to be an increase in fuel costs based on 22. Increase in maintenance materials, we've seen that in a number of areas. Increase for supplies, for instructional, and for office supplies. Purchase services are going up. They're using the same logic that we are, that some of the costs are going up for their supplies and also for their fuel. And increase for software costs, and increase for equipment and furniture. I don't know if any of you have been out shopping for any furniture or equipment, but they're looking like they're going up as well. Changes in the expenditure budget, which is in the package. This is increase in retirement and health. We just talked about increase for department budgets. Reduction for central office FTEs. Increase for the step for both teachers and non-teachers, and an increase for language immersion. It's roughly $12.8 million. Now, we have some other things that are also listed in your package that we are considering. All these are things that we need to talk about and figure out what we want, what we can do based on the revenues we'll have. So this version here is the House version, and based on 22 versus 23, we're roughly about $9.2 million more, but considering that almost $3 million of that is coming from the special revenue that we already were getting, that's roughly about $6 million. Plus, on the House side, we would have to pay the local portion. So it's really about $5 million when you get all said and done, increase over this year. If you look at the Senate version, they're a little bit higher because they are not taking the local portion out, and they're putting a little bit more in to the budget and only having $2,000 salary increase. So even though you would take the $2.8 million out, because we already received that this year, you'd be at roughly at $8 million difference. So at some point, there's going to be somewhere in between is where we think we're going to end up. But what I want to do is real quick read you a little bit here that'll give you a better understanding how the process will work. Some of you may already know this, but just for your information. This budget is sitting at the House calendar agenda for a week. The House is expected this week to take up and non-concur with the state budget plan as passed by the Senate. This move would result in two differing state budget plans and force the appointment of 3 members from the House and 3 members from the Senate to form a conference committee to work out the difference. But with only 3 days left in the regular session, it would be nearly impossible for the General Assembly to take the necessary steps that would be needed to pass a compromise budget plan. This would include, among other things, time for the conference committee to meet and work out the difference between the 2 budget plans and to present the compromise to the House and Senate for approval. To extend the session, the date designated as the last day of the session extension resolution will need to be introduced and adopted by the House and Senate before 5 p.m. on Thursday. Also on the House calendar is a continuing resolution that sets up a process to ensure operations of the state continue in the event the General Assembly is unable to pass the state budget by July 1st. Currently, the Senate and House are more than $1 billion apart in their spending proposals. That is mostly due to their differing plans for income tax relief, which impacts the amount of revenue that is available to spend. The Senate's tax relief plan reduces state revenues by $2 billion, and the House's plan reduces revenues by $680 million in the first year, and increases gradually over time. There are no large differences between the House and Senate versions of the budget for K-12, but we see that it is a little bit different from the House to the Senate. So they don't expect to come back till after the primaries, June 14th. So if they come back right after, we could potentially have something done by the end of June. If not, it might be sometime in July. So we'll have to wait and see what they end up on Thursday, where they're going to be. So some of the expenditures we're going to move to the ESSER funding, the summer SOAR, summer reading camps, summer reading books, and CRP, the after-school program. So with that, I'll try and answer some questions for you.
Mr. Carlin, thank you so much for the presentation. Let me ask a quick question for clarification before I open the floor up.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the, let me go back to it. The deletion of the student at risk school failure
Yes,
funds, that 2.8 million?
yes.
They're deleting it, but are they putting those dollars in that other pot?
Yeah, they're putting it in general fund,
So it's still the 2.8 is just being that line?
but it's including those numbers I gave you.
Okay, that's all I needed clarification on. Thank you very much. All right, we'll open the floor at this time for any additional questions from any board member. Commissioner Lomanak?
Thanks so much. Now, are we starting to talk about this, or are you going to go through this too, or is this?
No, that's for your more information that we can talk about. I can answer questions for
Okay.
you. And if you read through it and have questions later, I can answer questions for you then.
Okay.
But that gives you a little bit more detail into what I just went over.
Gotcha. Okay. I just didn't want to jump the gun. I've just got a few questions about this.
That's fine.
The student allocation that's listed here at the beginning of this document,
Yeah.
that is, for each student, we put
Yeah.
this amount of money. Does that does not include Title I funding, right?
No.
Okay.
That's separate.
And I guess I'm wondering whether we ever account, I know that Title I obviously accounts for high poverty, high concentration poverty. Do we ever account for that as part of our budget too, to ensure that schools that have a significantly higher poverty rate than other schools, that student allocation is different or no?
That student allocation is their component budget. It's not a large part of their budget. The bigger part is all the staff. I mean, that's a small portion. You'll see if you go back a little bit further, there's a schedule on what that amount is for each individual school.
Okay.
But we do more is look at the needs and may add staff or other funding depending on what the needs are on individual schools. I can't say it's all poverty, but
Right.
a lot of times it does involve that. But we start off here at this level, and then we see what the needs are.
Okay. And then I saw the water and sewage on page 11. Looks like it's just been constant for years, and I didn't know, and this is probably a dumb question, but because of the improvements and us handing off some of the sewage responsibilities out in Hopkins, is that not going to go down at all?
Well, I'm going to wait and see what the actual costs
Okay.
are for the sewage once we run through a year,
Okay.
because we are going to get charged for it. It's a question of how much it's going to cost. We expect to save X amount of dollars. Mr. Henry already calculated it, but I need to make sure that's what it's going to be.
Gotcha. I just want to make sure that was coming from the same area. Okay. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner King?
My questions are, so a little bit all over the place, but I can't ask you questions on things that we can't control, right? So,
Move your mic.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hang on.
I can't hear you.
I'm
Your mic.
Move your
very
mic closer.
busy here. If you notice, I've got lots of stuff.
Like your mic, your mic.
So, my questions are not in any particular order, and they have more to do with the things that we can control versus the things that we can't. So I'm not going to ask you about the House, the Senate, the new funding formula,
Yeah.
et cetera, because we're just going to have to wait, right?
Yes.
So my first question is, in the past, when we know that about over 80%, probably 84 to 86% of our budget is salaries. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, 84, 86,
It's
90?
usually, it's been running between 84 and 86, probably 85.
Okay. So we know that. Also in the past, in the CAFR, we were able to see the number of employees, et cetera, and at one point you changed the methodology, and you and I talked about it briefly, I mean, a couple of years ago, but my question is related to that. Is the budget that we have currently, is it based on filled positions or unfilled position? How many? What percentage of of the total positions that we have? Because at the last at the Realtor meeting, Dr. Witherspoon put up a slide showing 42 FTE, 4,200 FTEs in the district. And
That-
so, and we know we have a lot of unfilled positions, right? So, what does the picture look like?
Well, the budget usually is based on all positions, and then it's reduced by 2% to 98%. But the number that you're talking about is probably all FTEs and all funds, because I think the general fund is showing just over 4,000. But the 4,200, that's probably a little light if you count all positions, including vacancies, for all funds. Because just in student nutrition, you have, I'm going to say almost 300. So, I mean, that's 4,300 right there. So
Wait,
It
so
could be-
can you say that again? You know what you're talking about. I
Yeah,
don't know what you're
yeah,
talking
that's
about. So go slow.
So in there, you'll see a FTE schedule for general fund, which
Right.
is just over 4,000, and that's including the ones we brought over for the special revenue for that 2.8 million.
Okay. That's including those?
Yeah.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, you know, if you count just that 4,000, which includes vacancies, and student nutrition, which includes vacancies, is about 300. That's 4,300. Then you have another couple hundred probably with the special revenue, other special revenue, Title I and all those other ones, and special ed and whatever. So I'm not sure. I think he was probably going off the top of his head, just a number. If you included everything, including vacancies, it's probably closer to 4,400, 4,500 total, but I'd have to get that number.
So we know that we've had vacancies for a while now, and some vacancies have been for a number of years.
Yes.
Is there a process by which you go and say, well, we haven't had this position filled in, let's say, 10 years or 5 years or 6 years or 3 years, we can probably do away with it and just scratch it off. Is there an exercise like that?
We do some of that. I can't say it's 100% in all areas, but we have been doing some of that. And I've noticed some of those same ones you're talking about.
I mean, because we have a lot of vacancies, and so how have we been, my question is, how have we been able to operate with all these vacancies? And so,
Some cases difficult, and other cases not so difficult. So
Okay.
it just depends on the area.
okay. The other thing that I want to reconcile is, when I look at, and I've always struggled with that, and I still don't have the answer. Over the years, we've lost a lot of students. In the year 1920, we lost about 400. Then in the midst of COVID, we lost about 710. And then even this year, we've lost, based on the 145 count day, we've lost an additional 382. So over the last 3 years, essentially, we've lost 1,500. And I remember the demographer said, "Oh, no, they'll come back." And, well, they haven't. And not only have they not come back, but we've lost more. And so I have a really hard time, and this is where I need yours and the administration's help. So we're seeing a decrease in student enrollment, yet we keep seeing an increase in positions. And so how does that work?
When we see that decrease, Commissioner King, it's not in one school, it's not in one place in the district. That's an aggregate, and it's spread across. So that's not going to be reflected in terms of one classroom or one area of the district. So that's piece that has to be managed. Also, if we look at one of the requests here is, for example, is the expansion of the language immersion program at middle grades, which will call for additional staff for that program. We also, again, if we're talking Title I and some other funding, magnet grant and so forth, and all those things, some of those grants do call for additional staff as well, and sometimes that commensurate funding follows. So it's not always a one-to-one impact in either direction. So those are things that have to be looked at as well.
And I absolutely agree that it's not in one school, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we've been seeing. We've been seeing that trend, and we've continued to increase the number of FTEs. I mean, about in 2015, I don't have all my CAFR numbers with me today, but I'll have them next time. I mean, we used to have 3,800 employees and 24,000 students. Now we're at 4,200 to 4,500 employees and we've got barely 2,100 students. Of course, I'm not counting the 3K and 4K because the 145 day doesn't count those, but in the K through 12.
And we've added pre-K classrooms and 4K and 3K, and there's
Right.
some additional positions for that as well. That's
Sure,
another
and-
example.
And that's
Absolutely.
why I understand that piece definitely. I mean, that's those are factual. So, but still, that's where I still struggle is we've got two diametrically opposed, graph lines that are they're just not. It's difficult to reconcile, and every year our budget increases by about $10 million, right? What was last year's budget? I mean, this budget would be how much extra? Well, actually, I guess based on y'all's number, not the ones that we're going to get from the state or.
But every year also, as Ms. Collins indicated in this one, whether that's retirement going up, whether that's the cost of
Right.
the step, and those types of things, they're going to be increases that are going to be inherent
Sure.
that we have to do as well. So when we take a look, we've got to look at the whole picture.
Okay. Real quick, the on this, the document the extra document you gave Mr. Carlin, I see that there are additional, so how many additional FTEs? Did I miss that in your presentation? Usually we sort of,
I didn't put anything on the PowerPoint for the FTEs. And
So how many-
at this point, we have a list of some things that are optional. I don't want to say optional, but things that we want to talk about, and we have to make a decision because we aren't going to be able to do everything that's on that form
the-
there. Correct.
on the thick one?
Right.
Okay.
On the
so-
page you're looking at,
Yeah, page is, by
But
the way,
sauce.
I'm on page 1 of the proposed general funds
Correct,
budget.
correct.
Right.
and so there's some on there that we probably won't be able to do.
So that's a Christmas,
Yeah, this
that's
is
a Christmas wish list.
Yeah, and there was much more that different departments were requesting.
Right.
They're not all on here, but we just put some of the ones we thought were important that we look at, knowing that we're probably not going to be able to do everything that's even on this list. Because first, we don't even have the teacher salary increase in here, and we have to talk about that on what level we want to be at. Whether it's just a step, 500,000, 1,500, whatever it might be. That has to be calculated in as well. But these are some items that we thought we needed to look at and consider.
So who shoots off, the first item on the wish list? Or, I mean, how do we, what does the process look like?
We have a lot of discussions.
Okay, well, let's roll.
No, I mean, we have, but if you have comments, but we'll certainly look at them. A lot of these items are geared towards teachers, as far as teacher longevity, the excess 90 days, signing bonuses for teachers. You know, a lot of those are geared towards the teachers. If you move down a little bit, there's a program there for Greenview. Trying to increase the pay for the instructional assistants, paid on degrees.
Is that page 1? I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow
Yeah,
you.
I think it's page 1 for that. Is that not?
Okay. Oh, okay, I see it now. Okay, gotcha.
We're going to try and correct that teacher salary schedule where there's no movement on some steps between, I think, 3 and 6 or somewhere around that area, or very little increase. So Dr. Long and I were working on that, trying to get that worked out so that there'd be at least some increase in those lower steps. And then we're looking at some security, and then stadium managers. But these are just things we want to talk about or we want to consider. But until we know how much we can actually put into the budget, we aren't going to have an answer for that yet.
Are you good, Ms. King?
For now.
Okay, Commissioner Devine?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. It's be a question, Mr. Carlin. So the proposed budget that you presented to us is $363 million for expenses, but we're only bringing in about $354 million. So
That's using the House.
that's using the House version.
Yeah.
Correct. So with that said, that's why you're at the number that you're at, the 354, 353. And that's no millage increase, no
Correct.
at this time,
So
based off the value of the current mill.
For the last 3 years, this year going back 3 years, we have not asked for a millage increase.
Correct.
And this revenue budget is no increase.
Correct. So let me ask a question. Has the cost of gas gone up?
Yep,
Has the cost of paying personnel gone up?
yes,
Has the cost of food gone up?
yes.
So with that said, our budget is a needs-based budget based off the needs of the district, based off the size that we have.
Right.
Let me go back to your last slide, just before this slide. You moved some expenditures to the ESSER funding.
Yes.
Will those funds come back to the budget?
Oh, they will, when the ESSER funds are done, yes.
So then you're actually looking at an increase of about, what's that number, that previous slide, if you bring all that back? So another, I don't know, I missed that part. Yeah, so summer SOAR, yeah, the one before that. So with those items coming back, what's that? That's a couple of $1 million that we would have to find room for in next year's budget or
It's
subsequent year's budget?
About 3.3 million.
Okay. Because we said as a board in years past, this was important to us to ensure that all of our students get a quality education in Richland 1. So we need to be mindful that this is out of this year's budget, but should go back into the subsequent year's budget moving forward. So let's keep that in mind. With the language immersion
Yeah.
and the increase of staff there, is that a component budget or is that a general fund budget?
That is the actual budget, including FTEs. Okay, the 585 covers the FTEs and a component budget part. So next year, it's going to go up to 700. So it's not going to be a large increase next year from
Correct.
where it is. And then the following year, I think is pretty close to the same or just slightly higher.
Okay.
So, but that includes the FTEs and the regular budget.
Okay. All right, those are my questions for right now. I just want to just ask those general questions about we have more need than we have money.
Yeah.
So
we always do.
we need to be cognizant of that. And this board, at least the time that I've been on the board, has always been very respectful of our taxpayers' dollars and not overspending and ensuring that that we get the needs out to our students and the quality education that they need. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clyburn?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. Carlin, for that information. So I wanted to thank Chairwoman Harris for asking that question, because I actually wrote down the same question about the school failure SR funding being taken out of the House bill and the Senate. Thankfully, we'll be putting it back in the general fund.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure, so that change is not going to affect the framework or the structure of the program or any of that nature, will it?
Those those FTEs that are in that special revenue funding and going to be in the general fund, basically those were used to reduce the class sizes to get to our target class size, and that's what we'll continue to do at this point in time.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Okay, Commissioner Myers?
Just a quick question. So the summer source that we provided right now, we basically just asking for the funding for the school that we already providing for. We're not trying to add any more extra schools to it or anything.
The summer source already been determined what schools are at for this coming year. And when we do next year, we'll have to consider what schools we need to have met. I don't do that part, but there's a department that works on that, on where the schools are.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do we have any funding left for any room to add extra schools? With the budget you estimate for?
Well, these are going into ESSER, and we have it calculated out through 2024. So this summer, next summer, and probably 2024 summer.
Commissioner,
So it's hard to say we can add, and, because we're spending it based on that budget that we came up with.
let me, if I hear what you're saying, what we do annually as we go through summer, prepare for the next one, is assess what are we offering, and that's it's an umbrella, if you will. There's some are reading camp included in there. There's some school-based things. There's a lot under our umbrella and our course offerings. We do look at a lot of numbers, who was attending, what areas of the district need something, and just like from a budget process, where we offering things, where might more offerings be needed. We also do some fee-for-service pieces under that umbrella with some other agencies in our community. So we do look at kind of where needs are, and sometimes we make adjustments, sometimes depending as students sign up, if we can add classes and so forth. Some of that the last couple of years has been staff dependent. But if we need to add some classes, or we do reach out in the beginning of the summer, middle of the summer, and say, hey, the enrollment for this or that has increased, can we find additional staff? So we do try to base what we offer, again, on needs, on attendance, versus or in addition to what we can afford. Now, we do have budgets for all of this, so all of that has to be considered, but we don't simply say, no, we can't expand it up because we don't have funds. We do look at, again, what funding sources we have available and all, and that's when we talk about these types of things. The first thing is, what's the need, and how can various funding streams support that? So we do look at need and what areas of the district now, because we do want our students involved, whether that's on the enrichment side, the remediation side, the just additional experiences and offerings side as well. I think if I heard you,
Yes.
that's where you're
That
going.
explains it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Carlin, let me ask you a few questions right quick before we go back around. Budget is based on zero-based budgeting, correct? We will ask the county for, not the cap.
We submitted for no increase.
But if the value of the meal goes up, we're gonna go back to that money.
Well, yes. In fact, if they give us a number before they go to second and third reading, we'll get an increase at that point in time.
So here's a question, and really this is for point of clarification. There's probably no way possible General Assembly is gonna have done what they need to do by Thursday.
Right.
So that's continued resolution. We're under a continued resolution right now as we
Yes.
speak.
Yes.
How does that impact us when it comes to, we got an increase of 1% in state retirement? That's on us, correct?
Well, in the budget, in the state budget is some funding for that we'll receive.
Okay,
All I'm
even
saying
under
is
the
that I don't
resolution?
think it's 100%, but it's close.
Okay,
And no, it would have to wait till they pass the budget.
okay. Right, so once the budget's passed, so even under continuing resolution, it's dingling out there.
Right.
So even with the bus drivers, the 5% increase, same scenario, on top of them not giving the full 5%, they're only giving us 3%. So 2% is already on us.
Yeah.
That's not being said, but
Right.
2% is already on us, so
Right.
we will absorb the other 3% until a budget is passed as well.
Correct. If, whenever we pass the budget, yes.
So kind of going back to Commissioner Devine's point, our financial needs are greater than what they're presenting to us right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I just need to clarify that because each year we do the budget, we find ourselves in a different crisis. And right now the
Yeah.
crisis is gas prices and everything else
Sure.
is through the roof. Prices are going up. Budget is just out here just hanging when the state has more money now than it's ever had.
Yeah.
So
Imagine that.
this shouldn't even be a pinch penny discussion for school districts.
Yeah.
Because we have money.
Yeah.
And again, if I'm looking at this correctly, we're still being funded at a 2008 level.
Yes.
And we're in 2022, but we got more money as a state than we ever had.
And the other part is the pandemic has produced other
Right.
needs for students.
Right.
Through this whole thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other questions from anyone? Commissioner Luminac?
I've just got a few, and this may just be a typo, but the reason I'm asking is because it may also be because I'm misunderstanding something. In the slide, it says estimated expenditures 363 million, and then when I was looking at this document, it says 359, and I don't know if I'm missing.
Go up to the one above that, 363.
Gotcha. Okay.
See,
So-
that's before we take out for the ESSER funding,
Okay. Okay.
okay?
Gotcha.
And I agree, it's 359 if we take that out. But that's just with these items. There may be other items that we may want to swap in and out.
Sure. No, that's why I asked. I wanted to make sure I understood why that number
Yes,
was different.
no problem.
I do want to second what Mr. Devine said. I totally understand the thought process of moving some things to ESSER, and you're having to move things that fit within the ESSER categories. So I realize that we're having to do that, but I do want to also second the danger of next year. It feels like those that we're adding fluff when we put them back into
Yeah.
the budget, and those things are not fluff and obviously are very important. So I'm not blaming you. I just wanted to second what Mr. Devine said. And then teacher raises, I know that's a topic, and I don't know, I got a text from a teacher the other day who interviewed at a nearby district, and he was like, I'd get $7,000 raise, and I know every district's different, and I know that you were talking about, and I think where he is in one of those step areas where we are very competitive at the lower steps, and we've talked about this before, that in the middle there's some problems, and I know it's complicated, because if you raise those, you end up with this salary compression and all of that stuff. But I don't know if there's a way to come up with a multi-year kind of plan to say this is our goal after year 3, because I know you can't just say we're going to give everybody a $7,000 raise in 1 year. But are we talking about trying to deal with that over a period of 2 or 3 years?
The problem with trying to deal with it over 2 or 3 years is we don't know what the funding's gonna be. We could get no increase from the state.
Right.
And then where are we gonna be? And if we have no millage increase, you can't even cover the step.
Right.
So it's hard to say, yes, this is what we're gonna do for 3 years. We can put a plan together, and if we get the funding, yeah. And I think Dr. Long's been working on some of that.
Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, because you talked about the state funding at the fiscal year 2008 level, which is 14 years ago. And one of the things, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the misperceptions that I come across a lot is that the federal funding is the majority of our funding. That's really only, about 10 or 11%. The state's usually about 45%, correct?
The state, for us, 35% is the state, more, and roughly 65% is the county. But then you got to go, and we really don't have any federal funds except for the indirect costs that we collect from those federal funds.
Right.
ESSER and special ed and Title I. That's where the couple $1 million is coming from. But then you have your special revenue, special ed, Title I, and all those, as far as your federal funds. And those aren't included in these numbers.
Right, of course. But so the state is at least three times more funding than the federal. I mean,
Oh.
overall, at least, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't consider the federal funding for general fund much
Right.
of anything.
Okay. So when we're talking about the state funding us at 2008 levels, do we have an estimate? And I realize because the funding formula is going to change, that makes everything much more complicated. But if we had continued on the trajectory, how much more would we be getting? Do we know that?
Yeah, we actually have a schedule that the state calculated up until this year, 22. We'd be getting 3,100 per student versus the 2,400 we're getting. So if you multiply the $700 times the number of weighted pupil units,
Right.
it's quite a bit.
But it's millions.
It's
Many
definitely
millions.
millions.
Yep. Okay.
It's over 10 million. It's probably closer to 15 million.
Okay. I just wanted to flesh that out for, I know everybody here
fine.
knows it because they've been dealing with it, but I think it's important for people
Yeah.
to have an understanding that that state funding is really important and one of our biggest sources of
So it
funding.
depends on the district that you're in. For instance, in Richland 2, it's flip-flop.
Right.
They get more from the state and less
Less
from
from the
county.
local. Yep. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carlin. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Mr. Carlin, and being that you mentioned that, just two follow-up questions. Excellent question, Commissioner Lomanak. 65% of our funding comes from the county because of what we don't get from the state. Around that
Well, that's the breakdown, but I wouldn't say that's why.
was one of the reasons why.
It's certainly one of the reasons, because if you,
They supplement, correct?
no, if you go back to when the state cut us, 2001, 2002, we got cut again 2008, 2009.
Right,
The year we got cut $11 million from the state,
right,
we asked the county to help us out.
right.
Well, they never took it back. So we continue to get that funding, and it keeps getting a little bit bigger, but it's not all because of lower funding year to year, but in certain cases, they always work with us.
Okay, so with that being your answer, why is it that we get less money from the state than two?
Because the type of property that's in our district versus what's in their district. If they've got more owner-occupied, their operations is much lower. They have to have, their operations millage is way higher than
Right,
ours.
right, tremendously.
But that's due to the type of property they have in their district.
Okay,
We have more businesses, more even manufacturing, that type of thing.
right, and I heard you mention earlier in your proposal, well, not proposing, the discussion, our Lexingtons they get a tax.
They get a penny sales tax
They
for
get a pension.
capital.
We don't get that.
No, we did try to do that back in 2002.
Right, it didn't work. It didn't work. Fees, and we charge our students no
No
fees,
fees.
so their education is 100% free
Yeah,
So-
and other districts may have $2 million in their budget for
That-
fees.
for fees, in addition, that they're
Yeah,
collecting off
yeah.
of students. Okay, all right, any other questions from any board member? Commissioner King?
Okay, so on page 2 now, I've made progress. I see all these, I guess the different departments, and, I'm interested in knowing more about the percentage change for like teaching and learning, yours, operations. Chief of staff, that's a huge jump. Almost, 25%. And what is the charter school transfers, vehicle replacement, et cetera, et cetera? Well, I guess that is sort of self-explanatory if that's the list that's included in there.
The increase basically is two things on that: charter school transfers, vehicle replacement, et cetera. The charter schools, I increased them a little bit for each school that we have. And then I increased the amount for the cost of fuel going up. I think it's 200,000 just to cover fuel.
Is that district-wide?
Yeah, it's district-wide, so when the fuel starts going up, I'm gonna be able to help out either the motor pool or transportation or whoever just based on knowing that the cost is going to go up.
And what's the audit contract?
That's for the auditors, and then also for, who else is in that, Sherry? I can't remember the other group that's in there. Is it? I'd have to go back and look. I don't have, there's two different parts of that. One's the actual audit,
Okay.
and I'd have to look up the other one.
But the other, those percentage, the change is, obviously pretty significant for, the one,
Well-
that you have there. I think we need to know what those are about.
Okay, well, we can get that for you.
Yep.
Each one, I know for like building services, a lot of it's his material and supplies that he's gonna have to purchase is his best estimates based on the prices going up. And the fuel and that type of thing that for all his people to travel. So, that's just top of my head right there. But there is some that we may have to relook at, and I'm sure we will relook at it, depending on where we end up with the budget.
If you could provide a little bit more information, that'd be great.
Okay, any other questions from anyone? Okay,
This is first reading.
this is the work session, yes. All right, Mr. Carlin, thank you so very much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
We'll be going through our first readings, I think, by the end of the month.
We're looking at trying to do it for the 24th.
Okay,
I'm hoping I can figure out what to bring for the first reading.
yeah, I know. Appreciate that. Okay, if there's no other questions or discussions from the board, at this time, we're gonna actually place ourselves in recess. And that is because our IT guys need to switch over for the board meeting, which doesn't start until 5:30. All right, good afternoon again, everyone. The board is returning from a brief recess as our IT team needed to make some switches as we prepare for our regular scheduled board meeting. We're now coming out of recess and we're going into our official meeting of the night, which includes our executive session, which is set to start at 5:30 p.m. The following items are listed on that executive session, which is a personnel HR updates, leave of absence, and hiring of personnel. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I move that we go into executive session to discuss said items.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned by Commissioner Devine to approve the executive session agenda and to go into executive session. It's been seconded by Vice Chairwoman Clyburn. We'll open the floor for any question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose say nay. The ayes have it. We are now in executive session. We'll be back shortly. Thank you. Good evening again, everyone. Today is, again, May the 10th, 2022. This is the regular scheduled board meeting of the Richland 1 Board of Commissioners. Board's been here since 4 p.m. with a budget work section. And then at 5:30 p.m., we went into executive session. Executive session did end at 6:27 p.m. with a motion from Commissioner Devine, which was seconded by Commissioner Myers, and it was voted unanimously to come out of executive session. We do still have set before us an agenda as pursuant to a FOIA. The public has been provided access to the live stream of this meeting via our district's website at www.richland1.org, as well as in person with limited seating. At this time, we're in the public portion of our meeting, and we will call to order now with the invocation by Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Let us bow. Heavenly Father, we beseech you right now. We ask that you would be in this meeting tonight as we make decisions for our students in this greater Columbia community. We ask you bless Richland 1, bless our students, bless our staff, bless the administration as they go about the work of improving lives and transforming lives of our students to make them contributing citizens to this global society in which we live. We ask you now to bless this board, bless the decisions that we do make on behalf of this great organization, this great area. We ask now that you continue to bless, God, and be with us all. These and many other blessings we ask. All those blessed says amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Commissioner Devine, for providing our invocation on tonight. Let the record reflect all board members are present with the exception of Commissioner Bishop. We do have an agenda set before us. Dr. Witherspoon, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we have public participation along with the minutes and contract extensions. Also, under Office of Operations, contracts to provide access control, burglar alarm, and surveillance equipment, purchase of ultra sulfur fuel, diesel and B5 biodiesel fuel, student laptop protective cases, and then under Office of Human Resources, we have personnel and HR updates, leave of absence, hiring of personnel. Under Office of Academics, we have the JAG program, the grant renewal, along with the 2022-23 textbook recommendations. And on the Office of the Board, we have second reading approval of the procurement code, along with second reading approval of policy BEDH and the board report, followed by the superintendent's report. Is there a motion to accept tonight's agenda?
I make a motion to accept tonight's agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers and second by Commissioner Devine to approve tonight's agenda. We'll open the floor for a question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote electronically. Okay. The ayes have it. The vote is 6 yeas. So tonight's agenda has been approved. At this time, we will open the floor for public participation. We have none that signed up, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. If there's no objection from the board, we'll read in both items, which is the minutes from our April 26, 22 meeting, along with a contract extension for perishable and non-perishable food items, general groceries, presented by Ms. Outing. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It is a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Devine. It's been seconded by Commissioner Myers. We'll open the floor for any questions or discussions on either items. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Okay, the ayes have it. The vote is unanimous. Items as previously stated under the consent agenda has been approved. We're now at the Office of Operations. If there's no objection from the board, we will move to read all three items in, and we can do point of question and discussion at the end on any contract. 8.1 is a contract to provide access control, burglar alarm, and surveillance equipment, maintenance and repair. 8.2 is a contract to purchase ultra-low sulfur, ULSD, diesel, and B5 biodiesel fuel. And 8.3 is a contract for student laptop protective cases. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Devine. We'll now open the floor for any questions or comments on the said items under Office of Operations. Commissioner King?
Thanks, Ms. Harris. I do have a question or several questions about the burglar alarm, et cetera, contract. I see Mr. Brown is in the room. Maybe he can answer some questions. Yeah, let me. I've reorganized my desk.
Ms. Alden, if you'll come forward first, and Ms. King, go ahead and ask your questions.
Sure. Okay, so this. It states in there that Code Links is a vendor that the district has had a contract with. Is that correct?
We had an emergency contract done with Code Links until such time we did the complete procurement on said services.
So emergency meaning
The need to provide the services immediately until such time we did a complete computer.
So we terminated a
procurement.
contract with somebody else and we needed to have coverage. Is that what you mean?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, and then they came out, okay. What I want to ask about this is maybe Mr. Brown can answer this, is, so one of the things that I think is important in this contract is to have continuity of course, of coverage of services, right? Especially when it comes to burglar alarms, et cetera, et cetera. But with the equipment that the district has already invested in and certain technology with IP cameras, and there was also some technology in I can't even remember the name of, maybe Mark or Mr. Brown knows, certain cameras that had a particular way of doing things.
A vision line?
That's it? So does this company have those capabilities as well, is approved or accredited or certified or whatever with that kind of technology, so we can have that continuity?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then I think my last question has to do with, and kind of, I'm just interested in your take on this. You said burglar alarm and surveillance equipment. What does surveillance mean?
As simple as the camera operating system now. That's a vision line.
Okay, but in our case, as a school district, we're not really doing surveillance, right? They're mainly for, what does the term surveillance mean to us as a school district?
Well, in this case, our cameras are installed in all of our schools as well as our district facilities. They are an added source to help us create a secure environment. Do we have someone monitoring the cameras and the monitoring system from our security services? Yes. If there is a need or issue that may come up that we may have to pull up the cameras, but do we have someone monitoring the system in terms of, following personnel, student around? No.
Okay.
No, we don't.
All right.
But if we need them for, if there's an incident, we're able to go back to the camera system, pull it up, and to help us do whatever investigation we need.
Okay, and those cameras, whatever they record, is stored at the school level or district level?
It's
Or, I
stored-
mean, cloud level, or is it a hub, or is it at the school level?
I would say we store them on a server, and there are some things we may not want to share.
Correct. I was going to say
But,
that. Yeah, that's security.
No, but, okay, all right. I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Thank you guys so very much.
Ms. Harris, can I ask you last question? On the student laptop, is that for the renewal of the?
I think it's protective cases. Let us go ahead and do the vote, and then we'll just get a clarification
Okay.
question at the end.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, 6 yeas, the vote is unanimous. And just a follow-up question, can someone clarify student laptop protective cases for us? Finna call you Commissioner Alden, okay.
Right.
I don't think you want to pay. There's no promotion.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Witherspoon, this particular contract is not an extension. It was actually a newly procured services in accordance with the state contract vendor.
Okay, but those cases are are they going on to the renewal of new laptops that are coming in, or?
These are for the new devices that are being purchased. And it's
Okay.
a consistency and maintaining what we currently have. It's the same type of device.
Okay, and for laptops where sometimes maybe the protective case is broken, do we proactively also replace those?
Don't have the answer to that question. We have extra, do we purchase a percentage of extras in the event of, was it at one time?
We purchase 10% over what we purchase for laptops, and it's the same quantity for the cases.
Well, perfect, thank you.
Okay.
All right, any other questions, Ms. King?
That's
Thank
it.
you so much for the clarification. We'll move on now to the Office of Human Resources with Dr. Long. And our first item on the agenda is 9-1, the personnel HR updates.
Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, and Dr. Witherspoon, the personnel HR updates were provided for you all during the executive session as information.
Okay, this is an information item. If there are any questions or comments, seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to 9.2, leave of absence. Dr. Long.
The administration recommends the approval of the leave of absence without pay for the employee with initial CM The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Devine. We open the floor for any question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Vote is unanimous. The leave of absence, as previously stated in 9.2, has been approved. 9.3, hiring of personnel. Dr. Long.
The administration recommends hiring the teachers on the attached list for the 21-22 and for the 22-23 academic year. There are 30 teachers listed. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. We will now open the floor for any question or discussion. Commissioner Lomanak.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. I just have one comment and one question. The comment is, I want to say this because I know that I've been critical at times. I've heard from two principals in 1 week that the turnaround time for hiring teachers has just been drastically reduced. Thank you for that hard work. I know that this is especially a hectic time, but they were saying what sometimes took 2 weeks is now taking 2 days. So thanks for that, and I know that that's helping. Contracts are due tonight.
Yes.
I know some obviously have been returned. Do we know the number that have come in so far for teachers who are returning?
No, we didn't take a tally. We'll
Okay.
wait until tomorrow.
So we'll know, I mean, you'll know tomorrow with some certainty how many contracts have come back, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No further questions. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Okay, are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote on hiring of personnel. Vote is unanimous. The hiring of personnel, as previously stated in 9.3, has been approved. Thank you so much, Dr. Long.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to the Office of Academics, 10.1, which is JAG, Jobs for Americas, Grant Renewal. Dr. Prince. We don't touch this. Okay.
Chairwoman Harris, members of the board, Dr. Witherspoon, the administration is presenting to you the JAG agreement. This is for information. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, this is an information item. We'll open the floor for any questions or discussion. Commissioner King.
So this has been, I mean, historically, as long as I've known, a pretty successful program, right? And every year I ask for these kids who are in it, what is the graduation rate?
I don't have that right now, Ms. King, but I can get it for you.
Okay.
Typically, it's been in the high, it's been very high.
It's above the school's,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, right. If you could give us that, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you so much, Dr. Prince. We're now at 10.2, which is the 2022-23 textbook recommendations. Dr. Fields.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, and Dr. Witherspoon. We're here to request your approval of the adoption of instructional resources and materials to include textbook adoptions, grade levels, and content areas that were provided in your packet. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner King, second by Commissioner Devine. We open the floor for any questions or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Vote is unanimous. The textbook recommendations for the 22-23 school year has been approved. Thank you, Dr. Fields. We'll now move on to the office of the board with our 11-1 second reading approval of the Richland County School District Procurement Code. Ms. Outing.
Chairwoman Harris, members of the board, Dr. Witherspoon, the administration is requesting second reading approval of the Richland School District 1 Procurement Code. The administration submits for approval the 2021 Model School District Code as the new Richland County School District 1 Procurement Code, effective July 1 of 2022. As of May 3rd, we did receive the official written opinion from the Office of State Fiscal Accountability, accepting our recommendation. Administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner King, second by Commissioner Devine. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Okay, the vote is unanimous. Second reading approval has been approved for the district procurement code. Thank you so much, Ms. Howden. We're now to 11-2, which is the second reading approval of policy BEDH, public participation at meetings. I believe that is Attorney Williams.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this item is coming back to you all for second reading approval. It was delayed at the last meeting. There was some wordsmithing and rearranging of that language, and it's being brought back to you again for second reading.
Okay. Okay, we need a motion.
I move to approve the policy.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner King, second by Commissioner Myers. We'll open the floor for any question or discussion. Commissioner King?
First, I'd like to say the language is very good and very clear. I just have one question. It talks about limited seating, especially right now. Dr. Witherspoon, do you have a process by which the members of the public would know if there's enough seating for them? I look at the room tonight, right? We're at SAB, which is great because it's closer to my house. But we have so many seats, and we have a lot of staff here. And so if 10 or 15 or 20 members of the public come in, there's no more seating. So is there like a plan to address that if it were to happen?
Well, we do continue to look at that. Again, given as we transition through COVID, we know nationally, also statewide, and kind of those numbers are varying. So we still continue to monitor that and take a look at that as we move forward. And we will continue to do that as far as seating and that type of thing. While we're here, if there needs to be some adjustments or something, we're prepared for that as well.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, any other question or discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. The vote is unanimous. The second reading approval of policy BEDH, public participation at meetings, has been approved. Thank you so very much. We'll now move to 11-3, which is the board report. And let me just start off at the beginning. We did get 2 names that signed up for public participation. However, the time for public participation has passed for tonight. But we do want to acknowledge that we did receive your information, and we're going to ask that you get with Dr. Witherspoon or his designee after the meeting to share your concerns with them, because we do want to acknowledge, but public participation has passed for the night, and we needed this at the beginning of the meeting. We didn't have it. So we just want to, I don't know who the individuals are, but if you would please, Dr. Witherspoon, would that be Dr. Vesey? If you can see Dr. Vesey after the meeting, we would greatly appreciate it. At this time, we'll open up the floor for any board report from any board member. Of course, we do spend a great deal of our time with chat with the chair and school visits, but there are times that our colleagues are in other trenches in the district doing other things. So at this time, we're going to open the floor to allow them an opportunity to report out from any board member. Commissioner Devine?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. First, I want to say we had and I'm speaking as behalf of the School Board Association President. Last week we had a day at the Capitol where we, about 150, 200 school board members from across the state of South Carolina went to the State House to advocate for public education, and it was well received by our legislators. And so we were pleased to be a part of that. And then subsequently after that, after lunch, we had I think it was the first state superintendent of education forum. 8 of the 10 participants showed up, and so we were pleased to have them as well. And also, as the state president, had the opportunity to meet the South Carolina Teacher of the Year, Mr. Dion Jameson, a young man out of Greenville, Legacy College charter school, and so we're proud of him. He's from Orangeburg, Lake Marion High School, and matriculated through public school, is now and the first African-American male since 1956, since they started the program, that he is the State Teacher of the Year. And then that ends my report. But Dr. Witherspoon, I did want to talk a little bit about what Dr. Bishop talked about and Chairwoman Harris talked about, and Mr. Lomanak and I had the same conversation. What are some strategies and some things that we can do to help curb some of this youth violence that we're seeing in our community? And just like to hear some thoughts from a school district's perspective, and what are some things that we can do to help in that effort to curb youth violence. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Devine, there will be 2 reports as a part of the presentations, if you will, information sharing as a part of the superintendent's report, and that second piece, the piece that you asked, will be part of the second presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, any other board reports? Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. I just wanted to give a shout out to Miss Nettles' second grade class at Pine Grove Elementary. I visited that class, I think it was last week, and I was put in the hot seat and interviewed by 2 second graders, and you would have absolutely thought they were 5th graders. What Miss Nettles does in that classroom will blow your mind, and I was really, really impressed. So shout out to her class. Thanks, Chairwoman Harris. That's it.
Nettles University?
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's Nettles University. That's right.
So Commissioner Myers?
I just want to explain about my opportunity I had just to walk through Ham Middle School. Dr. Witherspoon, I just noticed that the number of students and ratio in the classroom was amazing. Just to have the opportunity to sit there and have one-on-one time with some of the teachers while they was actually in action in the classroom. I just want to say kudos to every teacher that took time out just tell me hey and get an understanding who I am as a new board member. And I also want to talk about some of the different things that middle school was offering that other middle school wasn't offering, just that free time of so-called resets, just get a time to restart your mind. I want to say the principal's doing an amazing job at Ham Middle School. Just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Okay, any other reports? Commissioner King?
Madam Chair, it's not really a report. It's more of a request for our next agenda. It's been a while since we've had a legal status report, and I know there are things that have moved. So I respectfully request that we include that, as well as a status on FOIA requests from the past and their responses. That would be very helpful for board members to know what is requested and what is furnished. It was done in the past. Ms. Wilson used to forward to us some stuff when she got it from legal. So I think that trend needs to continue. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Commissioner Clyburn?
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Harris. So I have just a few things. I also attended the State House and the Convention Center on the same day to advocate for our public schools here in Richland 1, of course. So that was a great experience. That was my first time, so that was an awesome experience. And I also did chat with the chair with Gibbs Middle School. That was on last week. It was a great experience. I'll tell you, the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that I spoke with definitely have their hand on in a lot, and they have their pulse on the school, and it was a great experience as well. And I also got to do Girl Boss at Sandal Elementary School on May the 5th. That is a program where they mentor young girls, they're 4th and 5th graders at Sandal Elementary. And Trey Taylor from the radio station, she was the moderator for the program. And this was, I guess, a sort of graduation for them. So they completed the program, and this was the end of the year celebration. So we had myself as a politician, and we also had some newscasters, news broadcasters. We had radio personalities, and these were all female women, or females. And we had lawyers as well. So it was a great opportunity to talk about our professions and just to, be able to impart some positive things for young girls. So that was a great experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Clyburn. And we would share our personal report first. First, want to thank Vice Chairwoman Clyburn for standing in the gap for us at the last board meeting where we were not able to be in attendance. We had hopes of being here, but I think that my children must have saw the need for me to get away and breathe. I got kidnapped that night, and I was hoping I would still make it here, but unfortunately I wasn't able to be here. But we certainly want to thank you for jumping in with boots on the ground and taking care of business for us at the last board meeting. I've been here, Commissioner Devine, for 10 years, and I've never missed a meeting other than burying my aunt and my nephew. So this is my third miss, and I didn't want to do it. But, when the children speak, mom's got to listen. You got to get some rest, Mom. So thank you so very much for stepping in for us. Also, on a personal note, we hosted our commissioners' luncheon, which is something I started 10 years ago. When I first got elected, I represent the District 4, which is one of the ruralest portions of the district, which has a lot of, I'm not going to say disadvantages, but challenges when it comes to internet and access to board meetings. As such, tonight, many cannot view this because there's no internet down there. So one of the things that, we came up with to increase our ability to communicate with the community was this luncheon, where we would have a sponsor that feeds everyone, and it allowed us an opportunity to talk to the community, to let them know the things that was going on in the district, as well as our principals would get a chance to talk about programs, et cetera, and also hear from students from elementary, middle, and high. But this particular meeting, Dr. Witherspoon, we were led to talk more about the increase in crime. And Sheriff Lott attended that meeting with me, and I'm very grateful because we had real raw dialogue. Commissioner Myers was there with me, and we were greeted by a room full of faith-based partners, business partners, community leaders, nonprofits, that, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, this is not a gripe session. This is a solutions-based meeting. We're here to put our heads together to come up with solutions on how we deter crime in our community and what are those resources that we have that we're not tapping into. And it was a great meeting. I'll say so myself. It was a great meeting. As a matter of fact, it made me very late to another event, Dr. Witherspoon. But it was just that type of conversation. Fathers were there expressing their concerns and even the need to be more present in our schools as examples to our children, as well as a lot of mentoring programs that are ready to roll up their sleeves and their boots on the ground in our schools to engage with our students. So wanted to share that with my colleagues, and then wanted to give a few announcements on behalf of the board. Number one, As you all recall, COVID for 2 years had us on lockdown. A lot of individuals lost loved ones and they couldn't funeralize them. A lot of them was memorials. You had to watch them from television. Some were graveside, and it's been very hectic. And those of you that know the operations of the boards of commissioners, we memorialize our employees when they pass. And over that 2-year spread, this district lost 31 employees. It's almost an employee a month. And we have not had an opportunity, I'm not going to say to grieve Commissioner Devine, but to celebrate the families and show them our appreciation for sharing their loved ones with us. So on June 30th, that's the anticipated day at 6 p.m., this board will be hosting a Richland 1 memorial, a resolution memorial to honor those 31 employees that we lost. You can save that on your calendar. I think that the families will appreciate it. I know that this district will appreciate it because we took a lot of hits, and this wasn't COVID deaths. This was various things that these individuals passed away from, but we owe it to those families to give them the same regard that we've given in the past. And this is a one-timer. This is not we're not setting precedents to do this ongoing. This is just to play catch up because we have 31 families out here that we have not had an opportunity as a board to thank them for sharing their loved one with us. And then once this time passes, we will go back to doing our memorial resolutions at our board meeting. We pray that we don't have any deaths, but in the event that we do, we will honor our deceased employees in our board meetings. Board has been also asked on May 17th at noon for a board work session to discuss the reapportioning map that we do have to present. So we want to make sure that that is out there and that will be properly noticed for everyone that wishes to attend. And also thirdly, we're going to ask the board if they have any items, as we've done in past for our board retreat. We are planning for a summer-fall retreat. Please get those items to Commissioner, to Eva, our executive assistant, so we can start putting together another great retreat that is very impactful as the one that we just had with Dr. Witherspoon and his staff. Just wanted to make those announcements to the board. If there are no other reports from our colleagues, we will now move forward. I think the last item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. So at this time, Dr. Witherspoon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. As I alluded to a few minutes ago, we have two presentations that we want to have before I get into the report itself. I would like to start with Mr. Brown, our Director of Safety and Security, just to review some information. And we've been piloting the metal detector program across our secondary schools, and I'd like for him to just give some information on that.
Good evening again, Madam Chairwoman Harris, Board Commissioner, Cabinet. Just like to give an update, a report on the pilot program of our weapons screening. We started this program April the 19th with the first school that we had an opportunity to go in and do weapons screening. It is ongoing. We do it at random with our high school and middle schools. We are about 50% completed, and the purpose of this program, I'll give you three key points. Is one, to be proactive in diffusing the threat of gun violence on our campus and to possibly prevent illegal contrabands from coming on our campuses. Number two, to acquire data as we look to develop a comprehensive weapon screening program plan for the district, and to address the logistic concerns of having a weapon screening program. And then thirdly, it is to keep our Richland 1 students and staff safe, and again, to show our students and staff that the district is concerned in being proactive about providing a safe, and secure learning environment. And so it has gone well. We have had the opportunity to intercept various items, and we've worked with the school and the leadership and having a plan to address those items that have been intercepted, and it's been very successful. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for that report. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments from any board member. Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Mr. Brown, when you said contraband, can you tell me what you mean by contraband?
It could range from anywhere from illegal drugs to illegal prescription that may not be ascribed to a student, to weapons, various types of weapons.
Well, so I guess maybe I misunderstood this program. I thought it was mainly metal detectors. Are we also now searching all bags? Because obviously illegal drugs will not set off metal detectors.
Right. So part of the program, as they walk through the metal detector, we are searching bags, and at that time, if some items that may be in the book bag is discovered, then we follow our processing protocol.
And are we searching every bag at a particular school?
That is the goal. That is the goal.
Okay.
We have part of the process in working out in logistics. We identify and work with the school leadership, and we pinpoint the main entrance. In most schools, we're doing 3 entry points. Some schools have 2, and everyone is processed through those entry points.
And are we partnering with Sheriff Lott and Chief Holbrook on this project, or is this something that we're doing just as a district?
It is a full collaboration with the safety and security team and all our law enforcement, as well as our security, contract security personnel. Yes, sir.
So Sheriff Lott and his department have been involved.
If it
and
falls in their particular district, yes.
And do we have like written policies and procedures for conducting the searches and the staff training that go along with it and the collection of data about that?
That is something that we'll work on, but yes, do we have covered procedures to outline what we're doing? Yes, and then part of this is to help us to get better in that area and develop deeper policies.
And do you know whether is the plan for next year to continue what you're doing, or is the plan for next year to have metal detectors kind of full-time at middle and high schools, or do you know yet?
Well, that's the purpose of this pilot program, to get that information, put it together, and present it.
Okay. And I noticed that in the proposed budget, there's a request for 2 additional staff in your department and then 16 full-time positions specific to the metal detectors. Is that, did I read that correctly?
If I think that's in the package.
Mr. Carter?
Yes, that's in the package. That was in the budget.
So the 16 full-time positions would be just for the metal detector staffing?
It'd be for the metal detectors and some associated
Activities
around that.
And I don't know if this is, Dr. Witherspoon, I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Brown or Student Support Services, but I guess my concern is, there are plenty of experts that don't think metal detectors do provide the safety that I think we think they might, and it's common sense to think that they would, and I totally get that. And I don't think anybody who wants metal detectors is wrong. I get that everybody who is talking about this stuff wants kids to be safe, but there are plenty of experts, including the executive director of the SRO Association, who doesn't believe that metal detectors keep people safe. But I was struck that we're asking for 16 staff full-time positions to staff the metal detectors. I didn't see any requests for additional social workers, psychologists, or school counselors. And when you talk about being proactive, that is truly proactive. And so I would really love us to make sure that when we're discussing school safety, we will not metal detect our way out of the problems that we are all very concerned about, I don't think. And so I hope that that will be part of this larger discussion, either tonight or going forward when we're talking about school safety. But that's all. I don't want to go on a long rant. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner King?
So, Mr. Brown, can you walk us through how you developed the program and who played what role with the SROs in the city and the county and whoever's involved in it?
Okay. In terms of basically, we're utilizing the equipment that we have in the district now, and the resources in terms of our safety and security personnel, as well as our contract security and school staff. That they make up the team, whichever school we choose, utilizing their morning duty personnel and whatnot. Where law enforcement come involved, we notify the command staff there, and that our school resources officers have been on hand. They do not do the search, but if something is discovered, they're there to assist, and we turn it over to them.
So the SR doesn't know necessarily that there will be a metal detector that particular day? Is that what you're saying?
You said, I'm sorry, repeat your question?
Are you saying that when you decide where the metal detector is going to go to what school on what date, right?
It's done randomly.
But you decide,
I approve the
right?
where the metal detector will go.
Okay, so
And all are informed. Communication goes out.
how far ahead of time?
Madam
I mean,
Chair,
Yes.
some of this may need to, for safety and security reasons, we might want to discuss some of this as
Well,
covered
wait,
it by
that's
executive
not
session.
really secret because, I mean, I'm assuming that people need to be in place. Are they trained before they do this stuff? What kind of training is involved?
And so,
You
yes,
said you've got staff also doing some
we
of the
have
searches?
our staff. Our staff is very skilled at performing the duties that they perform.
And the school staff is trained?
They are trained.
Huh, okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions, Ms. King? Okay, Commissioner Lomanek, before we go to some others.
I just have two quick follow-ups from that. Are teachers and staff at the schools part of this? I mean, are they staffing the metal detectors and conducting the searches of bags?
We work together with each school.
But, so some teachers are being expected to staff these and search students' bags?
That's not what I'm saying. We work together with the administration in terms of processing the kids through the metal detector.
So I'm still confused. Does that mean teachers are not searching bags?
This probably needs to be an executive
This has already happened.
Yeah, some
This
of
has
it
happened at schools. I
right,
want to know what's happened.
Some of it is, I know they do, because I've observed, there is, discussion that morning. There are certain things of designated assignment in terms of who does the search, who does certain aspects, whether that's security, whether that's the Sizemore group, or whether that's staff in terms of just from, okay, everybody, you come this way, and some of that directing and all. But the ones I observed, again, staff has been fine with their roles and what their piece of it. So there are some designated assignments or areas of responsibility depending on what aspect of this that we're talking about.
Well, at the schools where we've implemented this so far, have teachers been searching students' bags?
Some of that has, again, depending on what someone is doing at a particular space, walking through, there's this, or, okay, as we've all done, going into assignments or going into locations, if the things are placed in a bin or what have you, okay, let's see what's in the bin and so forth, versus, going in the bag or what have you. That may or may not happen, again, depending on the site, how many folks, and that type of thing. But those things are worked out and designated by the number of people and what's happening at a specific site.
So are teachers or anyone who's conducting searches of students' bags, do they undergo any training before that morning?
So we,
Short answer.
yes, so if
Short
a
answer. Yeah.
teacher or staff member of that school shows up, we give them briefing on what to do.
Just on the
They're not
spot?
conducting any pat downs or anything like that. No, sir, they are not.
Are any pat downs being conducted?
If there's an opportunity to do so, if the alarm goes off, that individual is stepped to the side, and then we do additional with the run, but no physical pat down, no.
So we're not searching their persons other than the wand, just their
That's
bags?
correct.
Correct.
Okay, and then if the alarm does go off, who does the extra wand search? Is that teachers or is that
No, that's
other
security
folks?
personnel.
Okay.
Are you done, Mr. Lomanek? I want to get to
Sure.
some others.
Sure. Thanks, Chairwoman Harris.
Anyone else have questions or comments? Okay, before I go back to Ms. King, let's some others get some comments in. First of all, Mr. Brown, thank you for doing this. Because when I go to a Richland 1 football game, a Richland 1 basketball game, a USC game, I go through metal detectors. I protect the court. I protect the field. And we need to protect the classroom. This little piece of material that we didn't have much debates about for the past few years, it didn't stop COVID. Some of us got it still, but it helped stop the spread. We never said that the wands or the metal detectors were going to solve our problems. But talk to your young people, because a lot of them have talked to me. I had kids tell me, and Commissioner Myers, you can agree to this, what took y'all so long? These are our children. I don't know what relationship anybody else has with the children of Richland 1, but this is what they're saying to me. What took you so long? I have children that told me they sat in class and felt comfortable learning, knowing that they walked through that test. Matter of fact, they even told me what we needed to do to beef it up. Said when the kids leave and go to we need to check it again. I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't solicit this information. These kids voluntarily gave me this. Parents gave me this information. We are living in a different day and age. And it has been nothing, and I'm going to say it, but the grace of God that we have not had a school shooting. We were in the paper a few weeks ago. I even got a call from a reporter. Asked me how did I feel about having 3 murders in a matter of weeks. How did I feel? You know what my response was? How do you think I feel? We're burying kids. I signed up to educate kids, not burying them. There's a saying that says an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Is it going to stop all of our problems, Dr. Cobb? Absolutely not. But it's going to slow down the spread, just like these masks did, just like the hand washing did, just like the social distancing did. We have to address this. Sad to say, Dr. Witherspoon, a lot of these murders lately, they've been our kids. Doing it to our kids. We are a district that strives to be proactive and not reactive, Commissioner Devine. This is a proactive measure. Did I want it? Absolutely not. But I have to keep this in mind. I took an oath. It said serve and protect. So how do we define protect when we know children have access to guns and knives and they bring them to your schools? Our crisis team, I told them this the other day, they need a badge of honor. The amount of crises we are dealing with. You don't understand, I hope you do, but some of us don't understand how hard it is to see children trying to understand death. The loss of a classmate that was in class yesterday. It's not gone. We have to protect the classroom just as much as we protect the baseball field, the kickball field, the dodgeball field, and any other field. And in my opinion, this is long overdue. We should have looked at this, Dr. Witherspoon, a long time ago. But it's been nothing but God that has kept something from happening in our schools. We've had close causes. We know about them. We know about them. Whether we want to admit it or not, we know about them. So to come in, Dr. Brown, and take on this challenge, as you're doing, you're collecting information to come back to us, just as we did when we did the dogs. Commissioner Devine, you know this, I was adamant. I told Sheriff Lott, I didn't care if it was a poodle or a chihuahua. That dog was not coming into our schools. But when he showed us what was going to happen and why, what did it do? It slowed down the sale of drugs at our schools because kids knew they were randomly coming. You don't know when they're coming, so guess what? It's just safe to leave your stuff home because you don't know when they're coming. So I want to add that in there because some view this as a bad thing, but there are many that see this as a good thing because it's protecting our campuses. Is it foul-proof? Absolutely not. Something can still happen? Absolutely. But you know what? I want to be able to say at the end of the day that we did all we could in our power to protect that classroom. We got to protect our teachers. It's like we protected them from COVID. We got to protect our children. And that's just where we are right now. Unfortunate, but this is the day and the time we're in. Guys, every district it is in on the side of California has issues. And trust me, these other districts are calling us and wanting to figure out how they can implement some of the same things. You go back and watch the news. Go back and watch the news. And I can name counties. I won't put nobody on the spot. Having shootings. Some kids were playing at a Little League baseball game down in Charleston. And shots rung out. It's everywhere. But do we sit here and not do anything? I don't believe that's who we are in Richland 1. I believe we care too much about our kids, and we're supposed to. We're supposed to. I'm going to yield to any one of my colleagues that want to chime in. Clyburn, Commissioner Clyburn, looked like you had something you wanted to say, because I know there are some others that may want to still ask questions, but we want to give everybody an opportunity to be a part of the discussion.
So I've changed what I was going to say, I think. But I know this program is just starting. So you might, the data that you're, beginning to collect, I know you may not be able to answer this question, but are you able to determine, somewhat of a success rate? I know you said I think you found maybe something. I'm not sure. Okay.
Well, I think in my line of business, anytime you can prevent a weapon from coming into the school,
That's a success.
it's a success.
Right.
And we've had those close calls where students have been in line to be processed and begin to dump or empty their pockets or book bag and try to hide the weapon. And there were eyes that was able to see that and discover that it was a weapon that they was trying to bring onto the campus. We say that's a success. We say that's a success. So will the information that we receive over a period of time yield some other conversation piece? Yes. But each and every day that we have an opportunity to prevent something from coming into our schools, then that's another defense. That's another opportunity that our students and staff are safe and our security personnel in that school are safe.
Thank you. So the thing I almost changed my mind about saying, is just hearing your elaboration about, kids noticing the detectors there and, starting to dump. I'm not sure what the real reason for, some of the opposition, of the metal detectors. But if we did not have them, those same weapons that were dumped would have been in our classrooms. So I don't I'm not sure of, what people are, some people are, why they're opposed to it, but I know I don't want that next to my child. And I have two children in public school system in our district, so yeah. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, too. Thank you.
Commissioner Myers.
Just a couple of quick questions. Will this program be able to be run through summer school, through the summer months? Or are you going to be able to still offer the same program?
I will collaborate and have discussion with senior leadership and see where we go from here. But
Okay. Are the teachers also required to go through the same mathematics as the students?
we have 3 entry points.
Okay. And last but not least, are we going to be able to get a 6 months up to date, just the board, on the outcome of the results at like 6 months or something?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Mr. Brown, are the folks at the metal detectors armed?
The only armed that's authorized in our school district is our school resource officer.
And they're not implementing the metal detectors, right? Or they're not conducting the searches?
No, sir, they are not.
Okay. Are they present? I mean, there's only one SRO per school at most schools, right?
Some schools have 1 SRO officer, some has 2. And yes, they are present. So, for instance, if we have enough, and also their command, well, we have a presence there. Let me just leave it at that.
I mean, they can't be at all of the metal detectors. If there are 3 entrances and there's 1 SRO, they can be at 1.
Let me interject real quick. There are some safety protocols. We're on the other side of some stuff. I would ask if we want to discuss the finite details of what we're doing in the schools. We need to do this in an executive session because sometimes we can be revealing too much information publicly.
Well, I'll move on to other questions.
Yeah.
I do want
Thank you.
to say that students have watched this at school, so I don't think I'm revealing anything that hadn't happened. Students know whether there's an SRO there or not. Teachers know. So I think at some point we do need to be not revealing stuff that all the students know, which sometimes adults do. I do want to make it clear that just because I'm concerned about the use of metal detectors does not mean I'm pro-gun in our classrooms. And there seems to be a suggestion that this is kind of that kind of binary. In the last 50 years, there have been numerous school shootings. 2 have been inside the school. All of the rest, every single one, has been on school property, not inside the school. Metal detectors will not help those. That's why I'm so concerned about what I see as a heavy-handed approach in metal detectors and nothing about social workers or counselors or mental health counselors. I spoke in answer to Chairwoman Harris. I also spoke to a classroom of students. Here's their quote. "We are not okay. We haven't been okay all year. Nobody asked us. Where are the counselors? Where's our downtime during the day? We get 22 minutes for lunch." And then they said metal detectors make us feel unsafe. So this isn't unanimous across the board among anybody. And I get that. And I totally understand people are going to disagree with me. But I think when we talk about, and we've talked about the violence in the community, that shouldn't be all on the school by any means. City council, county council need to step up. But having said that, we also have a role to play. And that's why I keep harping on these other supports, and also hall monitors. I mean, the more adults we've got in a school building, the safer our kids will be. Because when that metal detector rolls out at 9 a.m. and somebody gets a gun in the middle of the day, it's going to be those hall monitors, those social workers, those mental health counselors that are going to be the ones that we're relying on to help us. So I just hope that we will focus on those other issues just as much, because we aren't doing a let's flood a school with social workers pilot program, right? We're not doing a let's take all the scheduling responsibilities off of our guidance counselors pilot program so that they can do the counseling. We're not doing a pilot program where we flood a cluster of schools with mental health counselors. And I don't mean once a week, I mean every day. So I hope that we will start thinking about those types of pilot programs too. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lomanak. And to your response to me, I couldn't agree with you more when it comes to mental health counselors and social workers. But where are they? They don't exist. And I'll take you back to a conference that I often talk about that told us there's going to be a shortage of teachers. You remember that conference? Nationwide, there's going to be a shortage of mental health counselors and social workers. I hear you. I feel the same pain. But when I go out here and I look at all of these folk that's hiring, everybody looking for a mental health counselor. Everybody's looking for a social worker. And if you connect with USC and other schools, and Dr. Witherspoon, you heard them say this to us at that national conference, the influx of what we are dealing with as what we call societal ills. Schools such as universities and colleges were not prepared to put enough classes in place to produce the social workers and the mental health counselors that we need. We're sharing. When we go and we get these contracts with these outsourced individuals, they're not just serving us, they're serving other school districts, because everybody, as a song says, everybody standing in need of prayer, everybody standing in the need of a social worker, everybody standing in need of a mental health counselor. And I say that funny, but seriously, if you look at it, if I sit in a room right now with a school board member, Commissioner Devine, from California, guess what she's going to tell me? We can't find enough teachers and enough mental health counseling social workers. If I go to Indiana, it's going to be the same thing. When we go to these national conferences, you sit in a room with people that represent every state in this country, and guess what? We all got the same problems. I kid you not. We cannot find enough. I'm with you, Commissioner Lomanak. There isn't enough mental health counselors. There isn't enough social. Maybe we need to partner with a school and find children in our districts like we're doing this teacher cadet. Maybe we need to start a cadet program that starts getting these children interested in that as a career. But I am telling you, we're not producing them fast enough. That's the problem. A lot of times, you know, school districts get blamed for a lot of stuff they can't control. Dealing with violence, Dr. Witherspoon, you know my favorite saying. We don't pass out guns, we pass out Luncheon laptops. But we inherit this. When I hear people talk about what the school isn't, then it's a reflection of your community. It's what your community isn't. School districts inherit what the community brings it. And as I stated at my luncheon, Commissioner Clyburn, I told those pastors, I love all of you in here. Mr. Jacobs, you was there. But y'all work ain't in them four walls at your church. I need you out here in the street with my kids that don't have fathers, that's gravitating to the wrong crowd. You want us to tell you where the problem is? Sheriff Lott and I sung from the same sheet of music. Districts inherit this stuff. We should... In a perfect world, we shouldn't even have to have a discussion, Ms. Alden, about metal detectors. But we are not in a perfect world anymore. We have children that don't fear dying. And as Sheriff Lott said, they play the shoot 'em up, kill your game, and it'll say game over, and then it'll say press start to begin again. Our children don't realize that that doesn't happen in the real world. And when you take a life, it doesn't come back because you hit the start button. We have to educate them. But it starts in the home. And I don't have the power, and my colleagues, none of us have the power to legislate home. So what does the district do? And that's why my heart goes out to teachers, because you are the follow-up mom and the follow-up dad, and the counselor and the nurse and everything else. It's hard on a teacher now. But it's not no fault of theirs. It's what we're dealing with in society. I can promise you, there is not enough mental health counselors coming through the college system. That's why there's a shortage, because anytime they come on the news and tell us that we finna have a hailstorm. You go in the store, you ain't gonna find no bread. God knows we still trying to figure out why they buy all the milk, because you got no place to put the milk. But there are key items we run to the grocery store and we buy in a panic. Right now, there is a shortage of teachers, there is a shortage of mental health counselors and social workers. And Dr. Witherspoon, maybe, and Commissioner Lomnick, I love what you said. We do need to look at that. But let's look at how we can be creative as a district and start getting students interested in being mental health counselors and getting them through school and coming back and working with and for us. But I'm telling you, they're not in the school system. You go and talk to USC and other places, they're going to tell you we can't produce them fast enough. That before they graduate, they've already been scooped up. Hear it all the time. Hear it all the time. But as a team, and Team Richland 1, we are on the same team. Our concern is the safety and well-being of all of our children. But until we get to that perfect world, we got to do what we got to do. We got to do it. Are there any other questions for Commissioner King?
I have several. Mr. Brown, you said that you're about at the 50% mark on the pilot program?
Yes.
Okay. So you have a completion date? Somewhat. You don't need to say so, but it's yes. It's a yes or no. It's not, I don't need the date.
Yeah.
Okay. And at which point, certainly you will share the data with us. I will tell you that I'm disappointed that as a board, I was totally stunned about the metal detectors because we had agreed that we would talk about it before putting one out there, and that did not happen. So I will tell you that that's not cool at all. What I'm lacking is frankly, do we have a policy about metal detectors?
Pull it up.
We do have a policy related to search and that type of thing, but and again, going back to what we've been doing with metal detectors and walkthroughs at games and so forth, there is not that per se, but we have been doing that.
Okay, but is there a policy specifically?
We have a policy, JIH, student questioning, searches, and arrests, which deals with metal detectors, lockers, storages, and various, it's a bunch of things. The dogs, all of that's kind of rolled into that JIH policy.
But on those, just like Ms. Harris was saying, the metal detectors right now are only they've never been in a school ever. Is that correct? Ms. Williams, you can probably answer that question. You've been here long enough, and as a legal counsel, have we ever had a metal detector at a school? Okay. So the difference is, and again, this is not about for and against. It's about asking a lot of questions because, well, number one, there's a lot of liability that comes with this. Every single I need to be dotted and every single T needs to be crossed. And of course, there's also the confidential nature of it, which everybody understands and respects. But there's also a huge public portion because as much as sometimes those metal detectors appear as a surprise effect, they also should not necessarily be a got you because we want kids to not bring the guns in the first place. So, that sort of makes sense. So the training is really important, making sure that we have the staff and the board needs to have a very clear picture of that, on who's conducting the searches, et cetera. Those are all elements that as a board member, I will request to have. It's important. The difference between metal detectors in a school and in a stadium is that school is mandatory. And then you don't necessarily have the public coming to school when the school starts. So the setting is very different. Dr. Witherspoon, we all know that there's a shortage of mental health workers that's been going on for years. So that's not what I want to focus on. What I want to focus on is, as a district, we've known that for years. And it is our role to build up the pipeline, and we need to have a plan, and we need to put a plan in place. Until we can get to the numbers of mental health workers that we need to have, there are other creative solutions. Hallway monitors, for example, we can find people.
And we have those.
But we need more. We need to have boots on the ground. we need to let volunteers back in the schools. Mr. Lominac was saying, a lot of kids, they need breaks, and those go noodle or brain breaks, they're just not enough. Kids need to have more just outlets, physical outlets in the schools. I mean, Ms. Myers was mentioning at Hand Middle School, I think Hand Middle School, at least that's the one I know of, that does the best job, has always done the best job in allowing students more time at lunchtime to essentially have recess and walk that part. In other schools like Creighton Middle School, no. I mean, it's not, they have to earn it or so. These kids need to have outlets more than ever. So we need to find ways that compensate for what we can't have right now and we can't control right now. And those are not really hard things to implement. So that's what I'm asking, is that we cannot think like we used to think.
Right.
It has to be different.
Right.
We can't go back. There is no pre-COVID here. So let's be as creative. And those are things, by the way, that cost no money. Give kids more time for recess. It costs zero money. So I really think that it's worth just maybe putting a task force together or with students and staff, et cetera, but we really have to spend a lot of time developing a solid plan to compensate for the things that we can't have right now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Commissioner King, and couldn't agree with you more. I think this discussion and what Mr. Brown is putting in place is us coming together to put those solid plans in place. Dr. Witherspoon, you all did send notification out to our parents, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioner Devine, and then I saw you, Commissioner Clyburn. I think Ms. Lomack? Okay.
Just a few things. I do want to make note that I think at Dreer, we had this discussion in executive session regarding protocol and safety. I think when Mr. Brown first came aboard and told us what he was going to do,
Right.
which he's 50% done. So the board was aware of this since that time. I'm not sure what meeting that date that was, but the board was aware of that.
Not true.
Mr. Lominac, you remember that meeting? We were at Dreer.
Not true.
Mr. Lomack remembers. I think Ms. King wasn't present.
Oh, okay.
No, I was there. Oh, I was there, but that was not.
Okay.
The metal detector and the affirmative implementation was said the security would come back to the board with a presentation. That's what was said.
That was to discuss, I believe, the ongoing plan, but the board was not to violate the executive session, but there was a discussion about metal detectors.
Correct.
It's no way possible the bulk of us remember under safety.
About
Correct.
safety. So
Correct.
that's how we get into executive session.
Right.
Then secondly, wanted to note that I think in our last year budget, we had 14 mental health counselors that served our school, which was an increase of 5 additional mental health counselors, which was an increase over the previous years. And that contract is not up until June. And I'm sure that staff will be preparing that and bring that to us sometime in June and July, as we've done around that time every year. So I look forward to staff bringing that on-site mental health professional contract back to us as they've done in years past. So I think that will show where our heart is, where we spend our money going forward with the contract with our mental health professionals. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And just to clarify, Mr. Brown, those searches, because we've been doing searches at Gaines forever, so a lot of the staff has already been trained on searches because they do them at basketball games and football games, et cetera, correct? Such as your ADs and others. That is correct, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Commissioner Clyburn?
So Commissioner Devine actually covered what I was going to correct for the record. That was discussed. The metal detectors, I forget a lot, but when something is discussed, I do a pretty good job at remembering. And I do remember that being discussed, that, metal detectors were going to be used randomly. So thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Lominac?
Just a couple of things. We don't search bags at sporting events, right? Because we don't allow people to bring bags.
Clear bags. It's clear bags.
Right, we got clear bags, but the reason we have clear bags so we don't have to open them and search them, right?
Well, now, but previously we did that.
Right. So this is, I mean, Mr. Devine, I appreciate you pointing us to the policy because this is exactly my concern. We didn't create a policy that fits what we're doing now. And right now, what our policy says is we can search students when we believe a student committed a crime or that such a search will reveal contraband. So this is an example of, I think, we do need to be more thoughtful before we go and do something like this without examining our policies. And I will tell you that my memory of our discussion in executive session is that I specifically was concerned about the constitutional search issues and said, wait, we're not going to do anything before we could discuss this again. And I was assured that we would absolutely be discussing this before we implemented it. So our policy right now is not in compliance with what we're doing. Lastly, I want to say the hall monitors, we absolutely could use, I've talked to principals that said they could use 10 times what they've got. One of our problems, and this is not a District 1 problem, but we don't pay them enough. Some of them are getting paid about $16,000 or $17,000. And so obviously principals say that it's hard to keep them. Other districts are doing the same thing. So this is absolutely not a District 1 problem. But if we can find a way to pay them more, I'm hoping that we could keep them longer and get more of them because hall monitors are a huge stopgap measure in terms of keeping our schools safe. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Lomanak. Any other questions or comments at this time? Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for standing there and answering all these questions. We greatly appreciate it. Dr. Witherspoon, do you want to continue with your discussion?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair and Board, for those comments. Next, we will certainly have our lead social worker, Ms. Tony Keller Campbell, to give some information regarding what we do and provide supports on the other side of this topic.
Good evening to Commissioner, to Chairperson Harris, to the Board of School Commissioners, to Superintendent, Administration, and guests. In terms of the discussion this evening and being asked to discuss what we do around keeping our students safe and working around conflict and violence, there are a number of things that occur in intervention services and in support services. If you remember, we embarked on, in a heavy way, SEL, or social emotional learning. It all starts with relationships. It all starts with what we do around social emotional learning. A very simplistic definition of social emotional learning is really giving students those skills that are non-academic that will help them to be successful in life, successful in school, have healthy relationships with persons that they encounter on a daily basis. So we understand that in order to be successful with our students, that it is not going to be, we're not going to start with, say, an anger management group. We're going to start with teaching them about relationships. So the work that we started is based on the work of CASELs, and CASEL, for those of you that are not familiar with that, it's the Consortium of Academic, Social, Emotional Learning. It is the gold standard of what social emotional learning is about. And there are 5 basic competencies that we work with all of our students on, and that we also work with our staff around, making sure that we all understand it, we all are in a position that we can constantly model it back to our students. Those are the self-awareness, those are relationship skills, those are social skills, those are decision-making skills, and self-management skills. So what we do with that is we first understand that students are only going to be as healthy as they are, emotionally healthy as they are in those areas. So when we talk about social emotional skills, what I'd like to do is sort of give you some examples about when we talk about what those skills are and how they help students with conflict resolution and what we're doing. When we talk about the work that we do, particularly around relationship skills, one of the big things that we are involved in our district is restorative practices. Restorative practices has a basis on working with students that have had problems, that students that may have been in schools or in institutions, but restorative practices has so many components to it, and one of the big components is restoring and repairing relationships. Those relationships that when students are in conflict with someone, that they know how to solve that conflict in a peaceful way, that they understand that they have to repair it in order to move forward. So we work with students on that. We've worked with staff on that. That is something that we have offered out to all of our schools, and we have been training on or providing, professional learning opportunities for the past 3 years. We're going into our 3rd year with that. One of the things that we do is not only have we trained or provided that training to our staff, but we've been able to have trainers on site in our schools. So we now are in a position where we're not depending on another organization, that Richland One actually has on-site trainers and staff that can train our schools. So we're in a situation where we're cascading this training out. So as we get the training, we can train other people to do the training in our school, and we can even be in a position to have students to lead some of those restorative circles that we do to help with the conflict. So that's a really it is a successful intervention. It's one that schools are asking more for and that we're continuing to push out in schools. And we find that when you look at restorative practices, it's especially effective with school populations that are similar to Richland School District 1. So that's one of the things we do around responsible decision making. It is all about building community. It's all about building support in those relationships that are fundamental in student success. Another thing we do around responsible decision-making, we have a curriculum that all staff has access to. All staff are encouraged to use, and all our school counselors use. It's called Overcoming Obstacles. Our school social workers use that, and other support service providers at our schools. What Overcoming Obstacles does is it has many, many, many curriculums. It has curriculums around anger management. It has curriculums around resolving conflict. It has curriculums or lessons, around developing friendships, how to develop healthy relationships. All of these things are the core of what helps our students to resolve conflict. I heard spoken this evening about being preventive and proactive. That's exactly what these kinds of things do. So we can do the overcoming obstacles in a couple of different ways with our students, and we do. We work with them class-wide, and we also work with them small group, and at times we're working with our students individually so that if there are things going on, if there are conflict, so to speak, brewing, we are in a position to adjust and help students make good decisions so that they don't end up in suspension in school or out of school suspension. So another thing that we do in terms of social emotional skills, we talk about self-awareness. Self-awareness is key. We have to be able to understand when it is we're upset, what it is that is causing us to sort of be provoked, or in many instances now we talk about triggers, students having triggers. What's causing that trigger? If you're aware of yourself, you're aware of what causes you to be upset, oftentimes you're able to not only name that emotion, but you're also in a position to adjust your behavior, and in many instances walk away. So we work with our students around that. What happens when you're upset? What can you do? So those are some of the things that we do. We also do a lot around calm down circles, helping students learn how to calm down. We have all types of media around our schools in terms of and little cues to help students learn how to calm down. We have calm down corners in schools, and these are the kinds of things that we support in intervention services. These are the kinds of things that during our summer months when we are working and planning for the school year, we're working on what kinds of things to push out based on the data that we have around suspensions, around what students tell us just from the vast reports that we get on the kinds of things that we need to support our schools in. The other thing that we've done a lot on is we've taught a lot of our students about relaxation, about how to do the deep breathing, I heard someone talk about the brain breaks that we do. We do a number of things. So it's just not one thing, because we understand that it's never going to be one size fit all for what we do with our students. The other thing, or the other competency that we work with our students on, is one that many of you have heard: social skills. Social skills, and we know that can get you a long way. We know that as students leave our school buildings, they'll be in the workforce, they'll be in colleges, but we know right here today they need good social skills to be able to participate in many of the activities of school. So we work with them, and we have all sorts of activities. And one of the activities that many of you know about is mentoring. We are very big on our mentoring. We're continuing to grow our mentoring. Some schools already have advocacy programs. And one of the things that we know, research is very clear on this. If you have a mentor in your life, mentors teach the social skills, teach the conflict resolution skills that we are talking about to avoid violence. We're all about in intervention services and support services about how do we prevent these activities. But we also know that students can benefit if they have been in a conflict, so that the next time something comes up, they have some replacement skills, replacement actions that they can take. And then the fifth competency under social emotional learning is self-management. Self-management. What do I do when I become angry? How do I manage myself? Do I get up, slam the door, and walk out of the class? Do I impulsively hit someone? We go through all types of those types of behaviors with students, or those types of actions. What can you do differently? Do I need to use the calm down skills? Do I need to recognize where I am in my brain? You know, where is my brain state? Am I operating in my upstairs brain, or am I operating in my downstairs brain? We're teaching students the language. We're teaching students to learn about what it feels like when they're angry, so that they are able to use those executive functions in their prefrontal cortex of the brain. So students know this language as early as the elementary school level, and we work with students on those types of activities. We are also, besides working with students, we're working a lot with staff. A lot of what we've done in support services and intervention services has involved a lot of the professional learning opportunities. We've worked with nonviolent crisis intervention and prevention, CPI training, for some people might call it. One of the things that does is it has a very heavy component on de-escalating situations. We want to be in a situation where we don't have a fight. So what can our teacher, what can administrator do? We're very proud in Richland 1 to say that we have trained all of our administrative staff on CPI. So they all know the full complement of nonviolent crisis prevention and intervention services. And we also have trained others in school, instructional assistants, classroom assistants. We've trained people that serve on some of the crisis teams in our school, because one of the things that we understand is there always has to be that first, second, third line person. So we didn't want to be in a situation where that person might be out of the building. We have a backup where that is concerned. Another thing that we've done is we've trained all of our ISS, or in-school suspension staff, around verbal de-escalation. When you're in an in-school suspension class, it can get a little hot or heavy, and sometimes when students come in, they're still in that excited state. So being able to de-escalate students is critical. So what we're doing is understanding that this is going to be a situation that involves not only the students, but the staff in the remaining school community. Another thing I want to mention that continues to be taught and is the adverse childhood experiences. People need to know about ACEs. They need to know what our students are bringing into the school with them in terms of the emotional baggage that students are often carrying with them, because it helps with the understanding and helping with the understanding of what's going on. Oftentimes there's more tolerance in terms of what's going on with the student. The other thing I did want to mention and we have been on this journey now for about 4 years, Dr. Witherspoon, is being trauma-informed. Making sure that we understand what it means to be trauma-informed, because if we're trauma-informed, we understand how to prevent lots of conflict, lots of, disharmony amongst our students. And then finally, the thing that I want to mention that we are doing is we're looking at constantly improving what we do around mental health. We have some things in the works. We certainly are bringing the contract forward in the next month. It's almost like, were you in my computer today? Because we were working on it today. We're continuing to improve what we do around mental health, but we also understand that the 14 mental health workers that we have, they serve a portion of our students, and right now our students are hurting. We also know that when students are dealing with what our students are dealing with, a lot of community violence, and they're bringing it into the school, that sometimes they need more help than we're able to provide. So we're doing a lot of outside community referrals. We understand that we want our students to be seen sooner versus later. And if we don't have capacity in the school, we're making sure that we have linkages with those community providers so that we can get our students in and get our students seen. So those are some of the things that we're doing in our schools. And we're always continually refining and looking at what else can we do. And there are some other things that we have in store in intervention services and in support services. So at this time, if there are any questions.
Thank you so very much for that presentation. And I'll tell you, right on spot, you might have saw the board kind of smiling because Dr. Witherspoon was trying to explain CPI to us. He did a good job. but you really hit home tonight, so we just appreciate the in-depth discussion because you alluded to the training, not just the administrators, but ISS. In other words, there are several layers of individuals in our buildings that are trained in this. So thank you so very much for that. We'll open the floor at this time for any additional questions any board member may have. Commissioner Myers.
I must say I have wrote down like 5 or 6 questions, but the more you start speaking, I'm like, okay, should I answer that? Should I answer that? So great speech, by the way. I love it. Great speech, great details. But I do have one quick question. So do we have any programs that we reach the student at their home, like we're in their home in any of those programs?
We do have school social workers who will go to the home. Right now, because we have the COVID and the pandemic, we're not going as much into the home. But what we do right now is we call visits to the home, where we will ask the parent to come out and speak with us. But in terms of going into the homes right now, it's not exactly safe because a lot of our parents, unfortunately, have not been vaccinated, and we've had a lot of illness.
I can understand that. And I guess my second part to the question is, most parents out here is from Richland 1 as well. So when we have students that complete a lot of these programs and they have done graduate, do we have any platform or any guidance that we send them some way for future help reference if they need it?
Okay.
Just wondering. Because they have became our parents that raising another student from Richland 1.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I really don't.
Homework.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. If I don't know, I don't know.
And
Commissioner Witherspoon.
and to piggyback, we do embedded in our reset program is a piece that the staff in reset work with parents. As our reset program that we have in elementary, where our students that may have experienced some of the trauma that Ms. Kelly Campbell spoke of, that's causing some severe behaviors at their respective schools, and they're put in a more intensive and program for a period of time. But part of that transition back, or part of that program that a student is in, includes some work with families.
Okay.
And then also we have our parent and parent engagement specialists that do go into schools, into homes and work. And again, now part of that during COVID, that may have shifted a little bit, but that's a part of what they do. And a part of what they do as well, parent and family engagement specialists, is also linking and being a connector to families and some of these outside agencies as well. So we do try to make those connections, and actually that's embedded also in our Thrive Richland program that we do with parents being the first teacher and all. So we do have opportunities for that connection, but we will certainly add to the list after they leave us and so forth, if the students have that, know how to make those connections beyond beyond that. And we're looking at adding that reset program, given some of the successes and the data that we're getting, moving that up to middle school as well, because that's an area we see concern.
Okay. Commissioner Devine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Witherspoon or Ms. Tony Kelly Campbell, you talked about the informed trauma practices. How do we break that cycle? What are some strategies that we can use to break that cycle?
Okay, in terms of in how we break the trauma cycle?
Yes.
I think it starts with awareness and education. It has to start there, and it starts with not only educating our school staff, because if our school staff doesn't understand it, then we are put in a position of re-traumatizing students. But the other thing that we do is we offer this information to parents, and it's amazing the number of parents that don't understand or did not understand and have said to us, oh, I didn't realize that this had such an impact. So it starts there. So,
Okay. And you talked a little bit about mentoring, and I know that in our strategic plan, which is our guidance to where we want to be in 2023 when it ends, and Dr. Witherspoon, you may want to chime in on this. How are we progressing towards having mentoring programs in our schools?
Prior to COVID, we were working with all of our schools to have some type of mentoring program. What we gave them at the time are some guiding principles and so forth. You know, mentoring programs should contain these certain components, and provided that. And then we had schools that kind of, depending on the school and school community, their needs, maybe adjusted that certain ways. Then COVID came, and we of course had to end some of that. But we've been doing some kind of some retooling on that, if you will. We have a team that's looking at, again, more finally defining those areas and putting some more systematic pieces in place. And we will be doing more with that in the fall. We're setting the stage for the fall. We've had in several of our schools, and Commissioner Vine, you and I attended a couple of sessions over at Columbia High School with 100 Black men. They're moving to Eau Claire, and we've asked staff and Mr. Kerry Abel has been working with the team again to build that out, where we have, not to continue to overtax staff, but we have some Saturday programming across the district for not only students but for parents. We talked a few meetings back about dads on duty and some of those pieces. Again, coming out of COVID and all, the same thing with volunteers and those pieces. We're starting to work through that, but we plan. We've got 3 more weeks left in after this week, 3 weeks left. So plans are in place again to have certainly a more robust program across the district going into the fall. So we've been laying that groundwork and replicating some activities and building on some other strategies as well.
All right, very good. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Devine. And just as a follow-up question before I go to some other commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon, you talked about the mentoring piece and what we're working to put in line. And I just ask that we make sure that those mentoring programs and those running those mentoring programs, understand the needs of that community. We have 52 schools, and each personality is totally different. And what may work uptown don't work downtown. So it's not as easy as it may look to put those programs in there. I think that there has to be a direct connection to community, leaders in the community, the school, the parents. It's a total operation. And I think a lot of times, and I say this because I have a mentoring program, not in Richland 1, but I have a mentoring program. And what makes the program work is understanding home life, school life, community life, rolling that all into one, that when I serve a family or community folk, I understand to speak directly to their need. We're meeting them where they are. And I think a lot of times if you don't do that in a mentoring program, you won't get the outcome that you want. And I've noticed even in the district, we'll have mentoring programs in places that do very well. And I'll give an example. What was the program we had at Gibbs, and the kids were crying because we were moving it out of the school? Was it City Year?
Was that City Year?
It was City Year. City Year. I mean, that was a strong program in that community. Whereas, and I'll say this because I'm a product of this district, Ms. Clyburn, you came from this district as well. You could have taken that program and put it in a rural community, and it may not have yielded the same result.
Right.
So what I'm saying to you is that, and I don't knock the team and what they do because you work hard, but as someone that has come through this district and know the back ends and the corners, every corner of this district is unique. You probably have seen that as a social worker. Absolutely. So what you do at school A, it might have yield A+. You go and try that same project and the same approach, and it doesn't work. So what I ask is that as you initiate these new mentoring programs in the fall, make sure that they are streamlined to the culture, the climate of that community. Because if it's not, we're wasting resources. So I just wanted to add that on that mentoring piece. Commissioner Lomanak?
I think Commissioner Clyburn had
Okay, Commissioner Lomanak, and then Commissioner Lomanak. Nope. Commissioner Clyburn, and then Commissioner Lomanak.
Well, since you're on both sides, Commissioner Lomanak. So, first of all, I know sometimes some people, not me, some people get bored with presentations. I'm not talking about myself. But this was an awesome presentation, so I just wanted to commend you. And
thank you.
It may be because of the time that we're living in now, and it being much needed, a much needed service and program. But I wanted to ask about. Hold on, you mentioned calm down corners, and I really love that concept. Because I think that might help me with parenting sometimes. But so with your calm down corners, is that a requirement from the outset for every classroom, or is that something that's reactive, like if the need is identified and you address a need in a classroom?
It is very much in terms of, a lot of times, as we well know, principals set the tone for their schools. And one of the things that we've had some principals express interest in is how to get these calm down corners or centers. So they may have them in some schools and not all schools. You also have some school counselors and social workers that work with their schools to get those kinds of things set up in their particular school, because they realize that some students are struggling, and it does help them to learn some of the techniques so that they can go back into class. So it would be school by school, but one of the things that we have done is we've done a lot of training, and we've taught our staff how to set these things up in their schools.
Okay, thank you so much. And I had one more question. As far, and I did mention this to Dr. Witherspoon, and I know you probably didn't have time to prepare, but could we get this visually? People learn different, and I'm a visual learner, and I like to touch and feel things. Just to absorb. And I think that would help the public, as well. And, especially for parents to see, what we're doing, people that are watching at home and here, if that's a possibility. I don't want to put any more on you, but.
I would be happy to come back when I'm asked to come back, yes.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Lomanak.
I know everybody's glad there's only one of me, for sure. Ms. Kelly Campbell, you and I go way back. We've been talking about ACEs for years and years. And, obviously the pandemic didn't create any new ACEs. We've been dealing with this long before the pandemic. And I remember some of the trainings when I was in Richland 1 as a teacher and then working in a school. The trainings were great. I mean, the social worker that conducted ours is one of my favorite social workers on the planet. But one of the comments that I would hear over and over from teachers is, "This is awesome. I am so glad to know this. I have so much more information about signs that kids may be suffering some trauma or ACEs. But what do I do? Who do I call?" We still don't have. When a kid's struggling in my classroom and I call an administrator, they're in a meeting with a parent and they'll show up 30 minutes later. By then, that kid has escalated instead of de-escalated. The rest of the kids in that classroom have been affected, and that kid hadn't gotten the support that he or she needs, and the teacher hadn't. So that's one of the reasons I talk about hall monitors a lot, because those are sometimes our best and easiest ways to de-escalate. But also communities and schools. Are we looking to expand their presence in our district, because that they do this? I mean, that's what they do. And so I'd love to see us be talking with them about expanding that. I know that a neighboring district has hired new social workers and admin to start a new chronic absenteeism team. Chronic absenteeism is obviously going to be possibly weighted on the report card soon, so it's going to be something that counts against us, but also, obviously, chronic absenteeism is a sign sometimes of issues outside the school, ACEs and so on, and so they're going to have a team dedicated solely to addressing that for students who are absent the most. So I'd love us to maybe look at that and see if that's something that we could try to model in our district. And I realize every school district, or most, are way out of whack with the recommended ratio of social workers to students. The recommended ratio is 250 students to one social worker. For high needs families, it's 50 students to one social worker. Obviously, we're not close to that. What are we doing to try to hire at least one or two or three social workers, or have we hired any in the last year with the ESSER funds?
Yes, we have hired, I want to say, about 10 additional social workers. All of our middle and high schools are at a ratio of one social worker to one school, so we have brought the ratio down. Right now, I have 2 interviews scheduled on Friday, but we're constantly hired. We have hired no less than 10. And my intention is to continue to hire all through the summer, so that we will be at a point when school starts in the fall where most of our elementary schools have a 1-to-1 ratio. So we are about at 37 social workers at this point. So yeah, we've been hiring.
So ideally, by the fall, we'd be close to 50 about, if
Yes.
things go well. And then will we keep going to try to have some schools have more than one and
That's above my pay grade. That would, Dr. Witherspoon, I will defer to you.
we're not going to stop there, are we? I'll tell you, I talked to an assistant principal at a school, and he said if you get at a middle school with, I don't know how many students, 600-700 students, he said if you gave us 10 social workers, they'd be working 80 hours a week nonstop. So we won't stop at 50, will we?
We'll continue to work on, as we've talked about, filling the need.
Okay. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Anyone else? Commissioner King?
Yeah, on that same note, we talk about equity. The 1-to-1 ratio is not an equity ratio, right? Because we have schools that have 1,400 kids, and then we have schools with, 120? So that's not equitable. So yes, and then when we start sharing social workers, then they have to give up some to, and so yes, I totally concur that we've got to find, if we have 2 SROs in particular schools.
Commissioner King, I will share with you that there are plans as we hire to look at the need in our larger high schools, and we have had the discussion that as we hire this summer, there will be maybe some 0.5, so there may be a 1.5 in some of our larger, higher need schools, but that is in the plan, so that understanding that we have some schools with lower numbers and lower needs. So we are looking at giving more than just 1 to some schools.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, so my second point is, and that's really toward Dr. Witherspoon and your administration, Ms. Harris, to your point, I think to everybody's point on this board, school district only inherit. We don't pick our blueberries, right? And we serve all kids. We can't do it alone, but we will continue losing if we think that we can do it all. And I think that we think that we can do it all. And I think that we really need to go back to our basic, which is teaching children to read and to do math and to be academically equipped. Now, we know that that can only happen if emotionally they're ready as well. But that component, I urge you, please, let's develop our partnerships. We are in a unique position in Columbia with the legislature, with all of the nonprofits that are headquartered here. We are in a unique position to bring in so many partners whose specialty is just that. So we can get some of this stuff off of our plates. And so we can really focus on our core business. Of course, with our guidelines, et cetera. You know, it hurt to cut down the city year. It hurt to see that communities in schools is only in one cluster. If it is even in all of the cluster, I don't even know if it's in all of the cluster. But we have to develop those partnerships. We're going to continue to not be successful at this, especially this, given the shortages that we have. We have to develop those partnerships and bring in the community. I was just at the Riley Institute presentation today, something that they're doing in Spartanburg called the transformation revitalization of one of their areas across from Wofford College called North Side. And it's 10 years in the making, and it's super hard work, and they bring in a lot of people. But certainly what resonated with me, of course, is what we all know, is that this is not just contained to school district. It has to be a holistic approach, and it has to include the communities. So.
Thank you so much, Commissioner King. And to your point, Ms. King, you mentioned it too, the Raleigh Institute event this morning. And Doc, I wanted to share with you because I got some information about that meeting. And we were right on track because they even talked about the birth to four piece, right, and all of that being put into the community. So to that point, those are some things we're actually working on. But I would share this, that, you know, and my colleague mentioned it, and she's correct. There are a lot of resources in Columbia, but then there are not a lot of resources in other areas that's not Columbia. And our district is not just Columbia. And unfortunately, not being all in the city and a suburban, and a rural school district, man, I'm telling you, unique challenges all the way around. No one could believe some of the challenges that we face. But I think that it's important, Dr. Witherspoon, and even to you, to make sure that we partner with individuals that don't have a problem with taking their programs and resources outside of the Columbia city limit. You know, it's very disparaging to hear, well, we can't put this program at such and such because it's not in the city. Well, city doesn't give us tax dollars. Tax dollars come from the state, they come from the county, they come federally speaking. And as a district, we're a county entity. So we need to make sure that we serve all of the county. That's urban, suburban, and rural, as I say, uptown, downtown, and around the town. We need to make sure that everywhere we have children, their needs are being met. You know, as I share with Dr. Witherspoon so often, and I remember one day I took Ms. King on a ride, you might remember this 10 years ago, down in Lower Richland, down a dirt road. We went way out in the boondocks before we saw houses, but in those houses were our children. And they had to walk so far to catch the bus in the dark. So the needs are very different in our district, and we need to look at that. And even hearing you say that you're our lead social worker, you're doing the hiring. So you see that there isn't a whole lot coming out of these colleges and universities, that it's tight out there. And a lot of times we're competing against other districts, just as Dr. Long is, just to hire a teacher. Everybody has a need. But going back to my point, Dr. Witherspoon, I know we got community in schools coming, guys. We got that coming to some more schools. Dr. Witherspoon will be bringing that forth, I think, within the next couple of weeks. That mentoring piece, and as Ms. King said, we cannot do this alone. We have to look outside of the school district at other programs and what's working. There's nothing wrong with taking an idea from another community and bringing it into ours. And I can tell you right now, a lot of our organizations are underutilized. But then I can also tell you that some of our organizations are a little hesitant about working for whatever reason. And we have to make sure we create a comfortable environment where they feel welcomed to come and work with us and work with our children. And I know, Dr. Wilson, when we do the partnership piece, but each year we do that partnership breakfast, there should be new faces and new organizations sitting in there that we are working with and we're deploying into our schools to help support and build up our schools. Are there any other questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you so very much. Dr. Wilson, are you still in your report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Great discussion, guys. Great discussion.
Absolutely. We always want to find ways to encourage our students to read and develop a love for reading. In March, during American Education Week, I invited students to join the Superintendent's Book Club. And all they needed to do to join was read. Along with that invitation to the book club came a challenge from me. If students in pre-K through 8th grade collectively read 250,000 books by May 6th, I would allow the students at a school where the most books were read to duct tape me to the wall.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy, I think, Karen, Dr. Hagwood, to announce that our students have met that challenge and far exceeded that goal by reading over 500,000 books. And that's 561,731 books, to be exact. Congratulations to all 3,716 of my superintendent's book club members. Job well done. I'm also pleased to announce that Lewis Greenview Elementary School is the school winner, and Miss Terry Washington's class was at the top of the class. Oh. So more information on being taped to the wall.
I will be there.
So, Dr. Witherspoon, if they doubled the goal, then they should duct tape and staple you to the wall. Because they doubled their goal, right?
We'll double the tape.
Okay.
Awesome.
Since our last board meeting, we announced that we have a third student from our commercial driver's license program to earn a commercial learner's permit since we launched the program in 2019. Congratulations to Eau Claire High School senior Charles Tresvant, who also landed an internship with the City of Columbia's wastewater management plant. Charles is continuing the training he needs to earn his CDL during his internship. Our CDL program, which was the first high school CDL program in the state of South Carolina, and now one of only 3 in the state, and 6th nationwide. So congratulations to Mr. Tresvant. Wow. We've also been notified that 3 Columbia High School Air Force Junior ROTC cadets have been selected for the Summer Cyber Academy sponsored by the National Science Foundation. Junior Jalen Bell and sophomores Serenity Perry and Micaiah Young were among the 132 Air Force Junior ROTC cadets chosen nationally and only 9 statewide. The scholarship funds 1 college course and may provide cadets an opportunity to test for the cyber technology or information technology industry certifications. The length of the summer study depends on the partner university selected by each cadet. Congratulations to these outstanding students. Congratulations also to Dale Jacobs, our STEM coordinator at Lower Richland High School, who has been named the South Carolina Department of Defense Junior Science and Humanities Symposium Teacher of the Year. Ms. Jacobs was selected from a pool of 30 teachers throughout the state for educational excellence in the sciences, engineering, and mathematics. The award is provided through the sponsorship of the U.S. Army, Navy, and Air Force and administered by the National Science Teachers Association. As the winner, Ms. Jacobs received a monetary gift of $1,000, a plaque, and recognition at the annual meeting of the South Carolina Academy of Science. Congratulations again to Ms. Jacobs. On Thursday, May 12th, we look forward to honoring 169 of our middle school students for their academic achievements during our Middle School Scholars Awards ceremony. The program will be held at Eau Claire High School in their theater. And next Tuesday, May 17th, we will honor 217 high school seniors as Richland 1 Academic All-Stars. This recognition banquet will be held at the Columbia Metropolitan Convention Center. Congratulations to our middle school scholars and our academic all-stars. Tomorrow, May 11th, is National School Nurse Day. The observance was created to foster a better understanding of the role of school nurses in educational settings. This year's theme is Bridging Healthcare and Education. We can't thank our school nurses enough for what they do, not only in helping to attend to the students' healthcare needs of our students, but also for the additional work that they have done due to the pandemic. They have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. Thank you to our Nursing Services Coordinator, Ms. Eunice Jones, and all of our school nurses in the district for what you do. On Friday, May 6th, we held a Realtors Open House and Breakfast for local real estate professionals. The purpose of that event was to share with them information about Richland 1 and the programs and opportunities that we offer to students so they can pass that information on to their clients and their colleagues. Thank you to all the realtors who attended, and also for those board members that attended and of course staff. We had at least two of the realtors there wanted to partner with the district and provide some internship and some real-world learning opportunities for our young people. And our CTE director did make those contacts and something else that we can add in terms of options and opportunities for our young people. Nominations are open for the 2022 Richland 1 Hall of Fame induction class. Nominations must be submitted online. The deadline to submit nominations is Friday, August 12th. The nomination packet, which includes eligibility criteria and the nomination form, is posted at richland1.org. If you need additional information, contact the Office of Communications at 803-231-7504. Also, the Hall of Fame induction gala that was scheduled for February and postponed due to COVID has been rescheduled for September 17th at the Columbia Metropolitan Convention Center. Please save the date and plan to attend. Details about this event will be announced in the upcoming weeks. Madam Chair, that concludes my report this evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Witherspoon, for that very in-depth report on tonight. We'll open the floor at this time for any additional questions or comments that any board member may have for Dr. Witherspoon. Commissioner Devine.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon, want to thank you and staff for the Realtor event on last week, and thought it was well attended and heard some good comments from other realtors in the area. Will we continue this to be an annual event going forward?
Yes, and we had teed this up, Ms. Bowles, through Ms. York's office, and actually right before the pandemic, we were slated to have it, and then the pandemic came, so we put that off. But yes, this will be an annual event.
All right, thank you. I do have one person.
Okay. You want to go ahead with your personal privilege? Well, Commissioner King?
Just a comment to continue on to the Realtor. It would also be great, I think most of the Realtors that were there were residential Realtors. I think it's really important to also extend it to commercial and industrial Realtors, or like the I don't know what their names are, the site, commercial site, right? Because those are the folks that are bringing the business here, that are bringing the families here, and so I think it would be really important to include them as well.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on your comment, Commissioner King, we have, again, Karen York, Ms. Boyers, and myself, we've been having meetings with city, state, and regional economic development agencies that, and we've shared a lot of the same information. And we're looking at that, the city, county, and so forth. And we shared a lot of the same information because in several of those meetings, what we're able to show, whether it's through our CTE programming and the pathways and all, the internships, apprenticeships, all of those things, we're providing the workforce that will be in the community in the next 5 years or so forth, or even short if we're talking about in high school. So we've shared that information and telling them with those pathways that we have, whether that's dual enrollment and whether the connections that we have with Midlands Tech and some of the other universities, that Richland One should be considered an asset to economic development in this community. And again, we've shared data and information, again, programming, and Ms. York can attest, in probably all of those meetings, there were some of the same comments. Oh, we didn't know you all did all of that. And information that, just like we provided to realtors, that one pager that's there and can look at. We've worked with city staff and others to create that same thing from a recruitment eye and all. So to your point, we will add that those individuals to this meeting, but we will continue those economic development meetings to share information as well.
Okay, any other questions? Comments? All right, seeing none, thank you so much, Dr. Witherspoon. Commissioner Devine, point of privilege.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon, did you talk about this already? The spotlight for CTE?
I think we showed that at the last meeting.
Did we show
Be
that
happy to
last-
talk about it again.
No. It's a great publication. I actually shared it with my colleagues from across the state, and so you may see something similar at some other school districts, Karen, and your crew. But this is good information about Richland One and about the things that we do to prepare our students for a college and technical career, and just all the accolades that we've done. And so we want to say thank you all for this publication. It's very well put together. And it went to all the residents in Richland School District 1. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, very good. Then lastly, I want to recognize Elizabeth Eliezer. Her mother's right here in front of me, Miss Hughie. Elizabeth received the Rotary of Columbia Award this past week. Is that correct? And so we want to congratulate. She's the valedictorian for C.A. Johnson High School. Okay. Hopefully we'll be the valedictorian at C.A. Johnson High School as well. So congratulations to your daughter. Thank you for being here as well.
And also, one point of privilege, want to recognize the president of our the Columbia branch of the NAACP, Ms. Ovita Glover. Thank you for being in our presence on tonight as well. By form of announcement to my colleagues for the remainder of the school year, because we were having such a major scheduling conflict with getting the auditoriums for the board meetings, it was needed that Eva be able to move our meetings here so that the schools can have the award ceremony. A lot of the elementary schools are using the high school, so it was a nightmare. So it just made more sense to just move the meeting here for the remainder of the year. And of course, we know during the summer we're here anyway, so all of our meetings will be here until we crank back up at the beginning of the new school year. So that way we know we don't have to drive all over town. All of the meetings will be held here at SAB. One final announcement, and just a delayed Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers of Richland One. We hope and pray that you had a great Mother's Day, and to those of you whose moms are no longer with you, we pray that it was a day of reflection and remembrance of the awesome job that she did in raising you. At this time, the next regular school board meeting of the Board of Commissioners will be on May the 24th, 2022, here at the Stevenson Administration Building at 1616 Richland Street here in Columbia. And if there is no objection from the board, we can consider ourselves dismissed. Thank you.